Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Well, today we announced the beneficiaries for the 2021 Santos GLNG Mayor's Charity Ball, and I'm very pleased to announce that the charities this year are Nullandu Health Services, Rosebery Community Services, Mindcare Gladstone, and of course our good friends at Zonta are back on again as beneficiaries. We've raised almost $400,000 over the years for the local charities in the community, and we're going to do our absolute best to raise as much as we can again this year. And thanks to our sponsors and of course those who turn up and buy the tickets, the money will be distributed right across the Gladstone region. Well, the ball this year, the theme is Starry Night, and it's on the 29th of May, and tickets are on sale on the 1st of March, so we're encouraging everyone to jump on Council's website or contact the team at the GECC. It's 4972 822 and make sure you don't miss out. It's always a fantastic night, obviously. 450 tickets on sale, they will sell out, and we've got the fantastic Hamilton Band coming back from Brisbane. They were here for our New Year's Eve event a couple of years ago, so people will remember them from that. It's going to be fantastic. Don't miss out on getting your tickets for this event. Well, good morning everyone, good morning councillors. The time being 9 a.m, I declare open the general meeting for the Gladstone Regional Council for the 16th of March 2021. I call for apologies, there's no one absent, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is messages of condolence. Is there any messages of condolence, councillors? No messages of condolence. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is prior notifications of conflicts of interest. And I'll see, do I have any of those? I don't think I have any registered. Brooke, is that right?
Yeah, I just want to put my normal one in about the airport. I'm a board member but appointed by council. It's an airport agenda item coming up.
Thanks, Councillor Hanson. That's right, you're appointed to the Airport Board by Council, so no conflict exists. Is that correct? Thank you, Brooke. Any other conflicts, councillors? No, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is the Mayor's statement on current issues. And firstly, I want to start by talking about the successful CQ Rock meeting that was held in Billawheeler on Friday. We had Shadow Minister Chris Bowen and Senator Anthony Chisholm attended the meeting after they were visiting representatives at the Stanwell Power Station. So we took the opportunity to present the Shadow Minister and the Senator with our AEC commissioned report into the Inland Rail project. And it was a perfect opportunity to present that report to the Senator and to the Shadow Minister so they can take that to Canberra and make sure that everybody is well aware that connecting through to Gladstone from Toowoomba makes a lot more sense than going into Brisbane. And our voice is absolutely being heard loud and clear right across Queensland and on the hill in Canberra at the moment, so it's good to see that we're actually gaining some momentum. Later that night, I was at the launch of the Gladstone Regional Art Gallery exhibition, which included a number of exhibitions, including the National Geographic exhibition of Women, A Century of Change, and I really encourage everyone to go and check that out. It's fantastic. In these times of COVID, we've managed to get those images sent over to Australia, to Gladstone, digitally and then printed by Gladstone Printing, and they're just fantastic pieces of artwork. So I really encourage everyone to check that out. The other exhibitions are Women's Own, it's a heritage collection, Infractions, Goma's Kids on Tour, and Celebrate Australia Primary School Art Competition. All our local kids with all their artwork that was presented all the awards and everything on Australia Day at Millennium Esplanade. So it's great to see those artworks on exhibition as well. On Thursday and Friday this week, Gladstone will host the Lawmac Workshop and meeting, and I'll ask Councillor Hanson to speak more about that in general business. Wartburg PNC is hosting their colour run this Saturday, the 20th of March, 9 a.m. at Baffle Creek Golf Club, and the first 100 students involved will get their free pair of sunnies, so I'm sure there'll be lots of fun there in Baffle Creek. Pedal in the Park, Fun Day is this Sunday, March 21st at Lions Park in Gladstone. Now that's hosted by Gladstone Bushwalkers, Harbour City BMX, Gladstone Mountain Bikers, Gladstone Cycling Shops and the Boyne Burnett Inland Rail Trail Committee. So this is a perfect opportunity to learn more about hiking and biking in the Gladstone region. I'll certainly try and get there myself. And I think I'll just wrap up by saying before our next council meeting, it will be Easter. And we know that the best place to be in Australia at Easter time is right here in the Gladstone region. Of course, we have our Brisbane to Gladstone yacht race, which starts on Good Friday, and that will be live streamed to the world again. So our yacht race, of course, going global. Our B2G Village opening night will be on the Thursday night. On the Friday, there'll be a long lunch. Saturday, the Seafood Festival and the Line Crossing Party on Sunday. So the free events, obviously, it's a ticketed event for the long lunch, but the rest of the events you can turn up to the B2G Village and there's no entry costs. And of course, our Gladstone Harbour Festival, that kicks off with Tropical Wednesday. So you get into the festival spirit and brighten up your shop front or wear your best tropical shirt. I'm sure Dags or Councillor Trevor have some nice bright shirts they can put on and tropical up the Gladstone region on Tropical Wednesday. And there's 4 nights of live entertainment and fireworks at the Gladstone Harbour Festival this year. So I know the team have done a fantastic job getting their COVID event organised, and it's just going to be awesome to see our Harbour Festival back on again, our yacht race back on again, our B2G Village back on. And of course, we've got the Roadrunners 44th annual fun run on Good Friday as well. There's the Wicket Marina Markets on the Friday and the Saturday, and Orica's Easter egg hunt on the Sunday. There's just something for everyone in the Gladstone region at Easter. If you're not here, you should be, and I certainly recommend you book your accommodation now because it's going to be selling out fast. This is the greatest place on earth to be at Easter time, that's for sure. Councillors, the next item on the agenda is the confirmation of minutes, and I'm looking for a mover on the confirmation of the minutes of the 16th of February 2021. Thank you, Councillor Churchill and Councillor Trevor. Any business arising? No business arising. All in favour? That's carried. The next item on the agenda is the officers' reports, and G3.1 is the monthly financial report for the period ending the 25th of February 2021. And I'll hand over to the General Manager of Finance, Governance and Risk, Mark Holmes. Thank you, Mark.
Morning, Mr Mayor. Morning, councillors. The first item this morning is our monthly financial statements for the end of February. So essentially we're now 2/3 of the way through the financial year. Largely tracking in line with our forecast that was we applied in October. There is one probably significant variance I'll call out that has occurred during the month of February, and that is the receipt of dividends and tax equivalence payments from Queensland Treasury to the total of $2 million that was received. So they weren't forecast. So that was a welcome surprise to the bottom line. So that's the most significant variation we've seen. With respect to expenditure, what I'd like to look at is that our total recurrent expenditure is very much in line with forecast and also budget. So we have 66% of the way through the year. With respect to budget, we're at 67%, forecast 66.5%. So we're very much tracking in line in that space. We are still working through and updating our 6-month budget review to make sure we are tracking in that space. There's been a tendency from some of our managers to just be looking at where we are currently in some of those areas rather than looking at where the global position is. And if we look globally at our expenditure, we are right on line ball with our budget. So we're making every effort to make sure that the forecast and the budget is delivered, and we're working with our team to deliver that. With respect to CapEx, we are tracking around about 55% of budget, 52% of forecast there. So still projecting to be marginally ahead of budget at the end of financial year at this point. But at $35.5 million worth of our $65 million capital budget at the end of February. With respect to outstanding rates, pleasing to note that we are under 8% of outstanding rates as at the end of February, and that compares to a figure of 10.2% the previous financial year. So quite pleased to be able to report that. But happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mark. Questions, Councillor Hanson.
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor. I note your comment on the capital works, but the paragraph on page 11 of 46 sort of doesn't back that up. It doesn't seem like you're confident of making that capital. Is that?
It's just highlighting there's a risk, and there's still a lot of
so it's very
expenditure to incur. As in, so with $35 million spent, we're saying the target is $65 million. So we've only got $4 months in which to hit that. So there's a significant expenditure to incur over the last 4 months to realise that target. Our teams are confident they're doing it, and that's the reporting that we're getting through. So it's certainly we're well placed at this point, but it's just noting that there certainly is. Essentially, you would average that out at $8 million a month, and that would probably be higher than any individual month that we've spent year to date.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thanks, Councillor Goodluck.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. My question was just in relation to the CapEx as well, Mark. In particular, we've got road assets sitting about $11 million to go at 32% there, and then we've got delivery support and performance, which is $4 million odd. Just in particular, I note we've got $13 million in commitments, $4 million of which relates to the Phillip Street Communities project. So out of that remaining $9 million, would that be in large part those other groups?
The biggest item there singly is fleet. In terms of that delivery support and performance area, that's essentially, when you look at that, that's our fleet assets and our fleet commitments. So we do have a large replacement program, and the team's systematically working their way through that. So that is probably the single biggest item with respect to that.
All right, thank you. So we're confident we're on track as far as the rest of the report's concerned to reach our goals at the end of the financial year.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
No further questions? Can I have Councillor Muscat?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was wondering similar things as Councillor Goodluck, but I wanted to ask you just a couple of small questions. And when you talk about small medical expenses, what do you actually mean by staff medical expenses?
Yeah, so we lump all of our staffing costs together. So staff medical expenses are where we may ask for medicals to be done as part of pre-employment medicals, and we also may have the need for that before people returning to the workplace and the like.
Okay, so it's not something that we have to do and we haven't done?
It's an ordinary part of our operation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you able to expand a little bit more on the Telstra charge, the extra
Yep, so
money
just-
we...
Yeah, that's been a review there, and obviously it's a large lump sum bill,
Yeah.
and so is one that applies across the organisation. So it's something we've picked up, and I'm sure that we're now getting charged in line with the
Did we pick it
contracted
up,
rates.
or?
Yes, we picked
We
it up.
picked it up,
Yep.
so we could have gone like this for years and years.
We picked it up. Yes.
Great, that's great. And general, when we talk about the asset sustainability ratio, we talk about the that we have. So the focus has been on new and upgrade capital projects, and not so much on renewals. Could you expand a little bit more on the exact difference between an upgrade and a renewal, or what sort of goes in?
So renewal is essentially an asset replacing like with like. Mm-hmm. Upgrade is where that I'm replacing an asset, but I'm actually increasing the utility of the asset. An example might be going from a 2-lane road to a 4-lane road. So therefore, that essentially is an upgrade. So there is a component, though, of our upgrade assets, though, that is renewal. There's some nuances in the way that ratio is calculated from an audit perspective at times, because they only seem to account the renewal, even though I believe that part of our upgrade of our assets certainly recognises the replacement of our asset base, and what the asset sustainability ratio is there to capture, which is, are we essentially replacing our assets or making a sustained effort in replacing our assets as and when they fall due and when required. So that's what's meant, that ratio is, we need to take that longer term view with, which is why we're really, and a number of councils, the 90% benchmark there is what is set by Department of Local Government. A number of councils are now moving that benchmark to be what is in line with their long-term asset management plans. So that's something we'll be looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hanson, then good luck.
No, Mr Mayor, I've answered my own question. I would like to move, though, when Councillor Goodluck's...
Councillor Goodluck.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Mark, just in relation to the table on page 11, with the capital expenditure, actual against forecast, budget, etc., would it be possible, if we could get, with the commitments, another column in that table that shows the commitments that are aligned with each one of those groups? Is that something that we could potentially look at for future?
Absolutely, yeah.
That'd be great, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to move on. Councillor Hanson, a seconder, please. Councillor Branthwaite, all in favour? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is G3.2, which is an amendment to fees and charges 2021. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This item is just with respect to proposing a couple of changes to our fees and charges that have arisen during the just the ordinary course of running the business. These are charges that we don't currently have delegation to do at officer level, but what we're looking to do there is in both in our art gallery, as there's a couple of adult art classes and the like, that at the moment we just don't necessarily have the delegation or set a fee for those classes. So we're proposing to set those. And the other one is with respect to our standpipe key bonds, recognising that we've set a new non-refundable key charge, but we have collected a number of bonds over a number of years. So what we're seeking here is the ability to essentially, where we hold a bond, is essentially apply that bond and apply that as being fully receipted against the new charge.
Okay, thanks. Councillors, questions? Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Matt. This one's a brief one, and I recognise in dot point number 2 your advanced adult art classes and premium adult art classes. Adults, I suppose, starting at 18 years of age, and I realise that it's a minimal cost, but have we considered anything we could do for our pensioners to discount that a little bit? Is that possible? Or do you believe, in your opinion, that the fee that's being offered at the moment is affordable for everybody?
It's a it's an option open to you if you wanted to apply a concession to that. These are the charges that have been recommended coming through from our art gallery, and I don't believe they cover the full cost of running it. So there's already essentially a concession applied in terms of universally to the charges being adopted. But if you were, you could apply a pension remission if it was your choice. But at the moment, we don't necessarily offer pension remission in a number of other places for these commercial fees. But I'm not sure whether Kylie wants to comment from them.
Yeah, thanks for that. I do appreciate that. I raised the question, I suppose, more in advance of others will ask the question, because in most public venues where you go now, there is a concession and/or a pension. I do appreciate that it's not a full cost recovery, so we're already doing that. Perhaps we might have been able to raise that up a little bit and then offer the concession, but I have no doubts, especially in the advanced adult art classes and a lot of our retired seniors who want to actively participate in this. I'm sure some will ask.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Churchill. The adult art classes are quite resource heavy in the materials that are part of those classes and also the artist expenses. So the pricing that we've put there is our bare minimum. We're not really covering costs there, so Council is supplementing the program. So the cost there is probably the lowest that we can go in that respect, and we've been very conscious about that for the community.
Yeah, no, that's terrific. Thank you for that. I think perhaps in the messaging, rather than just simply a blank template sitting at the door or whatever, perhaps that might be able to be conveyed to people that we do provide all the supporting resources that are required for all participants. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, can I have a mover, please? Move Councillor Muscat, seconded Councillor O'Grady. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is G3.3, which is the Gladstone Airport Corporation Board of Directors. And I'll hand back to you, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So as part of the operation of Council's Gladstone Airport Corporation, Council as the sole shareholder sets and appoints directors of that board. You will note there's a table in the background section there that gives you both the commencement date of all current board members and the chair, and the appointment end dates. The tenure of two of those board members comes up for expiration on 30 June 21. So what we're looking at here is whether there's essentially the recommendation from the board is that we look at renewing and extending the term of both Tina Zawilla and Graham Konofsky on that board for a further 2 years. There's obviously some risks that you need to consider in the Space Council. We've pointed that out in terms of making sure that from a good governance perspective, we make sure that we've got the right skill mix on that board to make sure that we're managing that asset appropriately, and also making sure that we're not, the board's running independently. So certainly with respect to boards, if you've got a tenure there that starting to get a bit long in the tooth, and we're certainly saying the best guide there is 10 years. So, and none of these directors are in that bill. They've only been on the board for some 4 years now.
I know Bradley Bowes will be, is that coming up to close to 10 years at the end of his tenure? Yeah. Yeah.
So Brad comes up at the end, and he's the next. Yeah. So those decisions are to be made in the next period. Councillor
Churchill, did you have a question? No? Any?
No, well, I think the General Manager's answered my question in relation to tenure that'll be up for renew in June 2022. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Muscat, question?
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. I just wanted to ask, in relation to the fact that we have 6 directors at the moment, it just seems normally, I guess boards will look at odd numbers, or I mean, it could be. Is there a reason why we had 6 and not 5 or 7?
No, yeah, so certainly
maybe help. We originally had 2 councillors appointed to the board, and that gave it an odd number, and the legislation realistically said we should have 1.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking also considering, I guess that a lot of these attracts cost to the airport, so But I guess we also want good governance, of course, so.
For the
Yeah,
record, the
that was
councillor
just-
is a volunteer on the board. Thank
Yeah.
you, Councillor Hanson, for donating your time.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hanson. Thank you. I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Councillor Hanson, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I hope Mark wasn't referring to me when he was talking about long in the tooth. But Tina Zawila has excellent financial skills and knowledge and brings those skills to the board and continues to do so. And of course, Graham Konoski, with his historical knowledge of the airport and in local government, are both invaluable. So that's my only comment.
Was that Councillor Muscat? Did you move that? Yes, move. Councillor Muscat, seconded. Councillor Churchill. Sorry. Do you have a question, Khan? Sorry, before I put the motion, question from Councillor Goodluck.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Mark, just to clarify, we did talk about moving the tenures of the respective directors so that we don't have large numbers of directors' tenures expiring at the same time. I note that the recommendation before us today will see Tina and Graham respectively out to 2023, but then we've got 3 directors that expired in 2022. Are we comfortable with that? Or is there any other way we can possibly manage that?
You can certainly
better?
stagger. You can certainly stagger that. That certainly is a call. We've at the moment proposed those 2, and the probably opportunity may be to look at when you've got those 3 coming up the following term. Look at staggering those, should you wish, in terms of having separate maybe terms for the board chair as opposed to your board members. But you absolutely could make that decision now. We probably haven't considered which one you would essentially which one you would renew for a shorter period or a longer period.
Are you happy with that? Obviously, those 3 directors, and I think obviously with one of them having a 10-year tenure and has been a very valuable board member, I might add, next year that may be an opportunity to refresh the board there, but it's always up to this council at any particular time.
Mayor Matt, I think what Councillor Goodluck is raising has strong merit.
Yep.
However, in light of the current circumstances at the airport, with the challenges that they're currently facing, I think continuity right at this stage, in particular these 2 at the moment, that are up for review, is paramount. But going back to Councillor Goodluck's, I suppose, point, I think it will have merit in leading up to 30th of June 2022 that perhaps we do undertake a review of a revolving reappointment of directors rather than, a typical Senate half in and half out.
Yeah. So certainly, we take on board the advice, and we'll look at it, make sure we can stagger the next 3, and we'll bring them up for your consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Goodluck. Another question?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, that was my issue, was just, we want to ensure that continuity for those, for the directors, and making sure we've got good governance structure in that board. So I suppose with the chair's tenure expiring next year as well, we might be able to extend the chair or something, and obviously Brad Bowes, by the sounds of it, term will expire completely, so we can look to stagger some tenures there, so we just ensure we've got continuity in the years ahead, and we're not having half a board expire at the same time. So, but I'm comfortable with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
I think there was a recommendation through you, Mr Mayor, in the letter from the board to note that Brad Bowes' situation, so who's been a very, very good member of the board, let me tell you.
Good. And yes, excellent. We'll have a mover in Councillor Muscat, seconded Councillor Churchill, that the officer's recommendation be accepted. All in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the 3.4, which is our future strategic plan endorsement, and I'll hand over to the General Manager of Strategic Asset Performance, Mark Francis. And Mark, before you start, can I congratulate you on your appointment, permanent position as the General Manager of Strategic Asset Performance. I know you have been our General Manager of Customer Experience, but now you've taken on this new role, and I thank you for that. We talk asset management and we talk assets, and I'm sure that you're going to love this role because we'll certainly be watching it very closely. Thanks,
I love
mate.
it already, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. Thanks for that. I really appreciate that. Joined by Chris Irving here, who you're all familiar with. Councillors, you'll be familiar with this strategic plan. We have brought you along on the journey, as have we done with the community as well. This has been a project which I was very pleased to inherit. It's been done, I think, very, very well, and provides a really good example of great community engagement, working with Kylie's team and our consultants to really give people their place in a process, and also people's places in the process as well. It's been very community focused in that it looks at the particular needs of specific areas and specific communities, as opposed to a large broad brush approach. We did bring this to a prior information session, and as I say, you have been involved in the consultation as we've developed the action plan. It's with you now for endorsement. Chris Irving has joined me here for any detailed questions, but we recommend that you endorse the plan for us.
Thank you. Councillors, questions? Surely someone has. Councillor O'Grady, thank you.
Thank you. As you know, Chris, I started on the journey with you guys, and I really missed this part of it. Guys have done a really good job, especially with the community consultation and like with the photographic things from the community as well. So a lot of people probably aren't aware, but a lot of those photos are from our community. So like, oh, look at that, how beautiful is that? So yeah, so I'd like to congratulate you on such a wonderful job. Thanks.
Here, Councillor Muscat and then Councillor Churchill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to, I guess, just say a few words about this because I guess this was my first, when I first got elected, I was sort of came halfway through a term, so this is not, has been kind of my first experience where I've been, you know, obviously considering Councillor O'Grady's involvement at the beginning, the development of the strategy. I was there from the beginning, so it's been a great experience, and I'm kind of, I learned a lot of things. I think that what you guys done, Brent, Clint, Hannah, the community consultation that has gone into this project, and I guess it was one of our first ones too, that where we started using some of our best practice models that we implemented back last year too. And also highlighting the fact that it was during COVID, so where we had to somehow learn how to manage all these community consultation spaces. And I also wanted to highlight the professional work of the consultants. So all those sessions that I've attended, the meetings, they were very professional. They were very, you know, language was appropriate. Images, as Councillor O'Grady just said, you know, some of those things you managed to make a topic that was maybe a bit dry for some into something that got a fair bit of attention, you know, made the topic more attractive to people and got people thinking. So the report is definitely one of the best reports I've seen. So it's, again, the language is clear, there's specific recommendations, there's clear actions and things to follow each of the regions too. So the work that's there, I really encourage anyone, well, everybody in the community to have a look, you know, especially those ones in the southern areas of our region. So it is, I'm really looking forward to seeing where this is going to go and how we are going to use this to inform a lot of the things that we do. So I believe this is definitely critical for lots of things, lots of people, lots of sectors, like the industry, for example, the port. There's so much information here and so much to actually plan and to do that I'm sure they will find this very valuable. The same when it comes to the tourism industry, town planning, disaster management approaches, and of course there's a lot of content about environment preservation. So I'd just like to congratulate you and thank you for what you've done and for allowing me to be involved in that process. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Muscat. Councillor Churchill.
Thanks, Mayor Matt. Just comment and then two pertinent questions going back over again from what had been discussed at the information session. But first and foremost, having been at the original workshop and then subsequent ones around the region, it was pleasing to see that stakeholder engagement, very professional stakeholder engagement, and recognising the importance of the feedback that came from those people, especially in areas, Turkey Beach, Agnes Water, and the list goes on, that may very well be affected or impacted by what could or would occur. From my perspective is that I don't plan to be here in 2060, albeit 2100, not unless something changes in the meantime. But effectively what you've been able to do as a team is to be able to deliver a legacy, and that legacy now needs to become, as you would all know, action. So congratulations, well done. It really is an exemplary report, and as Councillor Muscat, Councillor O'Grady said, I just hope the people out in our region and the nation take the time to read it. Can I just go back to two questions that were extremely pertinent? I'm not sure which one I'm going to do first, because one's a good cop, bad cop type of scenario. Maybe I'll do the tough one first, and then we'll give you the good one. But as I have raised previously, some of the actions that come out of here, and I'm always genuinely concerned about the cost. What is going to be the cost to local government? What's going to be the cost to our ratepayers? There was a cost-shifting inquiry many years ago by the LGAQ, which still remains pertinent, is ensuring that if we're going to have true partnerships, especially when we talk about climate change, especially when we're talking about coastal management, it comes down to whose responsibility is it? Is it the nation's responsibility as a federal government commitment? Is it a state government commitment, or does it become local government? Because I would not want to, and I'm sure all my colleagues around this table would not want to see our ratepayers having to carry the burden of perhaps a responsibility from another tier of government. So I'd appreciate any comment or feedback before I give you the good one at the end.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. I think from a cost perspective, what the strategy does is it highlights a lot of work that needs to be outworked in the next 5 to 10 years to help inform the answers to some of those questions. If we look at the QCoast 2100 program, there was funding made available throughout the whole state for coastal councils to complete a CHAS, or a level of the CHAS. That program, the understanding is that program is continuing, and there's a level of funding available within that program to help support that next level of implementation. So as we work through that next 5 to 10 years, there's some support there from existing streams to help fund councils in that space. The benefit for us in achieving a full coastal hazard adaptation strategy is that I believe we're currently one of 9, so it positions ourselves really well to take advantage of that funding. There's also some other industry forums. So there's the Queensland Coastal Council Adaptation Task Force, which we're on the executive committee of. So that group is really having a focus on supporting or how do coastal councils implement these strategies as well. So there's some collaborative opportunities and funding opportunities that we may be able to realise through those streams. When it comes down to hard assets, there's that work in the 5 to 10 years is there to help to determine some of those hard asset solutions. Some of those things, some of them are public spaces, so some of them will follow the investment decisions that council needs to make to support those areas. There's some other adaptation solutions that do require a level of investment from from our ratepayers, from our community. So when it comes to how is private land protected as well. So there is some further discussion and further thought in that space that needs to happen. What the strategy helps and sets us up to do is to start to have those proactive engagement and conversations with those relevant stakeholders that have been identified through the strategy to help answer some of the questions that you've raised in that space.
Thank you for that. Probably, and I've heard Councillor Hanson, Councillor Goodluck this morning and others, we talk about assets, is about making sure if we're going to replace assets, we don't put them in the wrong place, and community infrastructure. But anyway, I'm sure that'll be a discussion and a debate that will come about later on. My other, I suppose, pleasant aspect is that have you given some consideration to this report, and be it maybe it's a joint one with the other 9, that it would be deserved of a national award?
Yes, I think it would be fantastic for us to celebrate this piece of work. I think, and I remember when we've had conversations before, that I think now that we've got the strategy, it goes back to something that you mentioned earlier about the action that now follows it. I think some of the recommendations that are in there, especially around incorporating this into our asset management planning, I think potentially going forward in the future, delivering on these actions that are linked to this strategy is, I think, where we can position ourselves for awards in that space. I'm just mindful that all coastal councils have just gone through this. I think ours is the best, but it's...
I think we all agree with that. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Muscat, another question?
Just wanted to also note that what we've done now, in some areas might cost some money, but in general, this will guide us to do things a little bit differently, not necessarily more expensive, and it will also lead us to save by not making the wrong decisions. So the other thing I wanted to mention that I forgot before was the advocacy of the LGAQ in this space too. So I guess I didn't mention that, but this probably wouldn't happen if it wasn't for the advocacy. So thank you again, and I'd love to move the officer's recommendation for us to endorse this strategy.
You move, Councillor Muscat. Seconded, please. Seconded, Councillor Churchill. Any further... Sorry, Councillor O'Grady. Any further questions or comments? No? I'll put the motion. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is G3.5, which is council attendance at conferences, and I hand to the CEO, Lisa Dowling.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, as you're aware, there are 3 conferences that have been identified would be worthy of having council representation at. All 3 are interstate and therefore require resolution of council to attend and to identify which councillors are best placed to represent council. And also in relation to the National General Assembly, we require the resolution of delegates who will have voting rights at that assembly. So all the information is provided there for you. Happy to answer any questions or just seek nominations for each of those conferences.
Thank you, Lisa. Obviously, for the National General Assembly, being the Vice President of ELGA, I'll be attending. It'll be at no cost to council for that attendance, but I would need to be one of the delegates so I can vote and speak on behalf of council. And in regards to the Inland Rail and the Northern Australia, we absolutely need to attend these conferences. It would be just ridiculous for us not to attend the Inland Rail conference, considering what we are in the process of hopefully achieving, and that similar goes to the Developing Northern Australia conference. When they first decided about a Northern Australia, they didn't include us, and thanks to Senator Canavan and others, they realised that Gladstone is very important to Northern Australia and quickly adjusted the lines, and we are now included. So I look for nominations for the Inland Rail Summit first, please.
Councillor Churchill, would you like to be nominated for that?
If you're nominating me, Councillor Hanson, I'd be pleased to accept to attend, perhaps on the proviso that I could wear a T-shirt similar to Councillor Trevor's that he wore years ago about coal. I should wear something that says, "It must go to Gladstone."
No comment.
Thank you. And in terms of the National General Assembly, we need another delegate, and we can send a number of observers as well, obviously. So
Do we need a seconder for that,
I
Mr
would
Mayor?
probably move them in total, unless there
In
is
total?
anybody else
Right.
that's interested in nominating for Inland Rail. No? Oh, thank you, Councillor Trevor.
I agree to Councillor Glenn Churchill's nomination, providing he wears my shirt. If you don't like coal, turn your power off.
To wear one that has a map of the Inland Rail from Toowoomba to Gladstone and and Brisbane as a bypass. Sorry to everyone in South East Queensland.
You
Councillor
could
Goodluck.
put, go to Gladstone, you'll be glad you were there. You did?
You'll be glad you did, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good slogan. Councillor Goodluck, and Muscat, I believe you might be interested in attending the NGA.
I am, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll be happy to attend. Thank you.
I think it would be appropriate for the deputy to be the alternate delegate as well. Is that okay?
Yep, happy with that.
Happy with that. And also the Developing Northern Australia Conference. We need to attend, councillors, and I think it's important that we are there. Volunteers, please.
I think from my perspective, I'd like to nominate Councillor Churchill because of his track record and knowledge of this conference, and I'd be ashamed to sort of lose that knowledge and that experience.
We have attended, Councillor PJ Sabanian has attended a number of times for us in the past and has presented there as well. So we've got a very good track record of presenting at that conference. So,
Mayor Matt, I'd be pleased to accept, from what Councillor Branthwaite had indicated, and if you have a majority support for that or unanimous support for it, I would like to perhaps foreshadow a dot point 5 that might be able to be dealt with in the same resolution, subject to you identifying or securing support for dot point 4 for my nomination.
well, at the moment I have Councillor Churchill would be representing Councillor Inland Rail and Developing Northern Australia, and Councillor Goodluck and myself and Muscat attending the National General Assembly with Councillor Goodluck and myself as delegates. Is there any other interest or nominations for any of those conferences? That looks like your dot point 5. We're interested to hear.
Yeah, thank you for that. With your permission, dot point 5, perhaps in light of the circumstances and what's currently occurring in the Gladstone region, that I would ask for my colleagues' support that the Gladstone Regional Council submit an expression of interest to submit a Gladstone region paper to be delivered as a guest speaker on priority topics of Gladstone region's transition economy, the inland rail, hydrogen and biofuels. So the intent of dot point 5 would be appropriately for not only for us to attend and ensure that the Gladstone region is well and truly profiled at this conference, and the significance of what the Gladstone region contributes to the Northern Australia economy and the Northern Australia development, but the national economy and the national infrastructure, but as to also at the same time be able to provide a greater in-depth to attendees, the conference delegates, and perhaps any other interested parties, to give them a greater understanding of our hydrogen, our move to hydrogen, biofuels, and again the advocacy for the inland rail and our transition economy.
Thank you. I think that would be fantastic. Councillor Branthwaite?
I actually agree with that, and I think it shouldn't be remiss if we didn't add to the fact that we want to also increase our road transport network too on that, with all roads leading, especially with Type 1 road trains through the Port of Gladstone, and also increasing our shipping. It just goes hand in hand. So,
Thank you. Carly Quinn, are you online?
Yes, good morning.
Thank you. Previously, we have sent an officer with a councillor to dual present. I have utmost confidence in Councillor Churchill's ability to present all on his own, but would there be an officer support attending that conference, do you think?
Yes, we do have that in the proposed budget for next year. Yes.
Perfect, thank you. I know for a fact that Councillor Churchill will be able to talk till the conference is finished, but just in case he needs the
I'll take that as a compliment, Mayor, mate.
Just to be helpful to have that officer support there. I have no objection to that. In fact, I support that 100%. Councillors, any further comments? I will put, oh no, I need a motion to move that way, please. Someone would like to move Councillor Hanson, second and Councillor O'Grady. Do I need to read it again? I think I will. Sorry, Lisa.
Sorry, can I check? Councillor Churchill, are you happy with that wording, or would you like more detail? It just says to submit an expression of interest to present a Gladstone region paper at the Developing Northern Australia Conference. Would you like the detail added, or are you happy for that to be scoped?
I'm quite satisfied with that, I suppose, as long as it's understood that the clear intent is what's going on in the Gladstone region in relation to our current transition economy and the biofuels, hydrogen, inland rail, and as Councillor Branthwaite's indicated, the road trains. It might also include the port access road. So I suppose, depending on how that becomes, maybe it could be an all-encompassing presentation. But I wouldn't like to think that we'd cover so much that we may miss the point of ensuring that the Gladstone region is doing good things at the moment, and we have big plans for the future.
Thank you. Could I have a mover for the recommendation on the screen? Then I'll read it out again. Sorry, moved and seconded. Thank you already. So it is moved and seconded that Councillor Churchill attend the Inland Rail Summit on the 25th to 27th of May. Authorise Councillor Goodluck Muscat to attend the National General Assembly, noting that I will be attending as a representative of LGAQ and ELGA, and nominate Councillor Burnett and Goodluck as delegates for Gladstone Regional Council for the National General Assembly. Authorise Councillor Churchill to attend the Developing Northern Australia Conference and submit an expression of interest to present a Gladstone region paper at the Developing Northern Australia Conference. All in favour?
Oh, sorry, Mr Mayor,
Can
I just say something first?
Yes, you can. Over to you, Councillor O'Grady.
Yeah, I was just wondering, the Gladstone region paper, I was just wondering, don't you want to do a presentation?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor O'Grady. From what I understand, our economic development specialist also is well aware that you have to submit the paper to start with to give them an insight on what it is that you actually wish to talk to. So it becomes I suppose, it's not the PowerPoint presentation, it's an EOI process, because you may not necessarily be accepted. So the intent of the paper is to be able to put forward our business case as to why we should be identified as guest speakers on the conference.
Right, thank you.
Excellent. Sorry, thank you. So I have the mover and a seconder again. I'll put that now. All in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll move to the next item on the agenda. We'll break shortly. G 3.6, which is the mowing, slashing and associated services, and I'll tender, or PSA, sorry, and I'll hand over to the General Manager of Operation, John Tumbers. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and good morning, councillors. Item G 3.6 seeks approval to enter into contracts with service providers under a preferred supplier agreement or a register of pre-qualified suppliers for mowing, slashing and associated services. The PSA arrangement relates to predominantly planned activities, and the RPQS relates to unplanned or ad hoc activities when it comes to mowing and slashing. We went to tender for the process, and we received 3 conforming tenders for the PSA and 6 conforming tenders for the RPQS. 5 companies with successful tenders are Graham Stirrat for a PSA RPQS, Just In Just Out for a PSA and RPQS, Opal Holdings for a PSA and RPQS, Purple Patch Services Proprietary Limited for RPQS only, and Wetzler Proprietary Limited for RPQS only. The anticipated spend, annual spend on these services across council is around $1.9 million per year, and is contained within approved operational budgets. What's different with the tender this year than has been done, I believe, in the past, is that we've arranged the services into zones rather than by asset type and a single provider. The tender is for all council mowing and slashing services, and not just those associated with roads and parks or the like. The reason for this is to attract efficiency and pricing for each zone. So, for example, Zone 7, which refers to Agnes 1770, a provider down in that area would most likely be best positioned to provide an efficient service, and likewise for something up at Raglan for someone in that area. Another change to the way we're administering these particular contracts this year, or for this period, is we will be controlling and monitoring the contracts from a central point with a dedicated resource to do that, which should avoid some of the confusion that we've had in the past with different providers and levels of service. I have Christy Wachner, Manager of Contracts and Procurement here, and do we have Cherie? And we also have Cherie Burke on the online to answer any questions around the layout of the contracts and zones, etc. That was Siri.
Thanks. Thanks, John.
Open to questions other than Siri.
Councillors' questions? Councillor Hanson?
Through the chair. John, I note you said it's $1.9 million per year. Is that right?
Yes.
I just got a query on a figure, but we probably had to go into confidential to do that. So
we're allowed to now.
We're not allowed.
So, Brooke, can you explain?
Councillors, there is no reason under the current legislation for you to move into confidential for a confidential attachment or for this particular matter. So
just at $1.9 million for 6 years is $12 million. So the figure for the biggest contractor there, it just seems out of proportion with that, that's all. Unusually high. I might be wrong. If you're guaranteeing, that's fine. That's on confidential evaluation report 3.6 attachment 1. So is that figure right?
Yes, it is, Councillor. That's for the 6-year period.
Thank you.
6-year period? Sorry, I thought it was a 2-year plus 2-year. Did I read the? I read the agenda wrong then. Isn't it awarding for 2 years plus 2?
It's awarding for 2 years with the option to extend for a further 2 2-year periods.
2. Okay, righto. That's a long contract, and I note that others were not deemed eligible. That cuts them out of the potential to re-tender at a future date for 6 years, yeah?
No, actually they can, we can actually refresh this contract during the term of the contract. So at any point in time we decide that we want to refresh it, we can re-invite anyone that was unsuccessful in this particular process to re-tender.
It's the best news I've heard for a long time. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Okay, councillors, further questions? Councillor Goodluck.
Thanks, guys. So just confirming, last time we went to tender to utilise specific companies for specific zones. I know we've done a hell of a lot of work in that space, and I congratulate the team for those efforts. So the reason we've moved to the PSA and the RPQS is to try and so we can be more flexible around how we apply those resources into those zones. Is that sort of the theory, or I'm just trying to understand why we moved from that sort of specific tender, which my understanding was slightly different to how we've approached this one.
Thanks for the question. So the previous contract, we had companies appointed to assets. So we had one company that was providing all of our parks assets. We had another company that was supporting our road assets, and one supporting water assets, and one supporting waste assets. So this particular time we've actually grouped up all of those assets into zones, and we're awarding by zone. So we're not going to be deploying a contractor to two different assets that are next door to each other. It will be one contractor servicing both of those assets at the same time. So there's some efficiencies there.
Okay, that's good. And then the so with the awardee, so for example, if we take Graham Stirrett, they'll be appointed the zone and they tendered on that specific zone. Is that correct? And then that's their zone, and that will be that. So there won't be sort of multiple contractors doing different zones at different times unless we have, the need. Someone can't do it or whatnot. Is that how it's supposed to work?
Yes. So for the PSA, in particular, we have the 7 zones, and we're proposing to award on the basis of capability within those zones. So there are a couple of zones that there will be 2 contractors performing work in, but it is purely based on what they tendered for and their capabilities within that zone. The RPQS is similarly awarded, although it is just a panel of pre-qualified, but our intent is that we will utilise those contractors where we're going to obtain the best value. So if it's a job needing to be done in the southern region that's unplanned, we would be more than likely receiving value for money by engaging a contractor that is based in the southern region to undertake the work.
Right, thank you. And just lastly, I know, particularly with mowing and slashing services, across the period of a 12-month period, the demand increases and decreases rapidly depending on how much rain we get, et cetera, And I know we've got sort of service standards in place for how often different parts of the region or different locations are mowed. And I have met with one or two of the operators that feedback that I've got is that sometimes if we leave the grass go too long, and they've got to take their slashers in, it can actually be a lot harder on the gear and cause damage. And so it's probably more efficient in the long run to do more mows, and get it done quicker. So my question is, do we have that sort of interaction with those contractors around how we can sort of best manage that demand and the most efficient way to handle those? That's sort of an evolving process which will change from month to month, year to year. But do we have those interactions with those contractors?
Good question, Councillor, and yes, we do. We've recently appointed a resource that is going to be centrally managing all of our mowing and slashing requirements. So they will be responsible for making sure that those peaks and troughs are being managed appropriately with the different contractors.
And if we have a contractor that might, have some ideas around how we can improve things, we encourage that and we try and, work with them collaboratively so that we can get that best outcome. That's what I'm sort of hearing there, yeah?
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect, thank you.
Councillor Trevor.
Thanks, Mayor. John, you mentioned that the total cost was approximately $1.9 million, and that related to all mowing and slashing activities, and I make reference to the use of the word all. Will these letting of these contracts result in any further reduction of in-house activities performed by our employees within the Gladstone Regional Council?
The answer to that question is no. This is in addition to the services and service levels that our internal staff keep up at the moment.
So there'll be no reduction whatsoever in relation to current employees' activities wherein they are engaged in mowing and slashing activities for our council.
That is correct. There will be no reduction in staff. Our internal staff still maintain their program of work and carry on with it. This does not encroach on that program of work.
And I'm sure I've asked the question many times before, but I can't recall the answer. Could you tell me again, please, why all of our mowing and slashing isn't undertaken by in-house employees?
At present, to introduce that approach would take a great level of planning and investment. To put that in summary, we would need to invest in the depot space, the buildings, the ancillary staff to support that, and also the equipment used. We're simply not ready to do that at the moment.
And would it also likely increase the cost of performing these activities? Have we done any budgeting in relation to that?
The intent of styling the contract in zones is to actually reduce the cost, so we're not doubling up on things like travel, travel time and paying for that. In terms of numbers, we would need to go away and do some assessment. Was it done as part of this? Yeah. I'll need to bring exact numbers back to you, Councillor Trevor.
Thanks, John.
Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, just the fact that you have the ability to refresh the contract, is that something new that's come in?
Thank you for the question, and it is, I think these were some of our, I think our trade services contracts were the first panel arrangements that we've built that clause into. It will be an ongoing feature in our panel arrangement contracts now, so yeah. Okay,
and I would assume that as a part of the condition of the tender that would have been brought to their attention.
Yes, absolutely. It's in the invitation to tender, and they're accepting those terms that will be maybe refreshed at our discretion at any point during the term of the contract.
Okay, and is there a minimum period of time in the contract before a refreshment can be made?
No, there's not.
Bit open-ended, isn't it?
There's
not that I'm complaining. So it can be 6 months old and you can refresh?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
yep.
Thank you.
Councillor Branthwaite, then good luck.
Well, thank you, Mr Mayor. I was actually going along the same line of questioning as Councillor Cameron, to be honest. I think you answered my question. Thank you.
Councillor Goodluck.
Thanks, John. We did have a couple of proponents that submitted non-conforming tenders, and we will be communicating with those proponents about what that process was and how they can go about hopefully engaging with us in the future. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Grady.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just going to ask, I know there's been a bit of an issue in the last year with some of our mowing services about, so we've got something in place just in case one of the new contractors actually default on their contract?
That kind of problem is one of the things that the RPQS will address, so we're able to go to a panel of contractors and fill the space quickly, and then if there was a need to go back to tender, we would follow that path.
No further questions. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Move Councillor Cameron, seconded Councillor O'Grady. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you, John. Thank you, Christy. All right. Next we have G 3.7, which is arboriculture and associated services. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Item 6, G 3.7, arboriculture associated services, seeks approval to enter into contract for arboriculture services under a PSA and RPQS with Treescape Australasia. GRC supplements its internal workforce for arboriculture services, particularly those services which require specific qualification to conduct. It's for a 2-year plus 2-year, 2 plus 2 plus 2 option on the contract. Only one conforming offer was received for the PSA and 3 offers were received for the RPQS. Treescape Australasia was the only conforming offer on the PSA and was ranked highest for the RPQS. Council estimates that it spends around $1.2 million annually on this service. Open for questions.
Thank you. Questions, councillors? No. Councillor Churchill? No. I have a mover in the officer's recommendation. Councillor Trevor, question?
I have a similar question to the questions that I addressed to you previously, John, and that is there any reason why this service cannot be performed in-house?
We recently went through a period where we brought the non-qualification required or lower risk services in-house ourselves. This is offering those services to contract which require qualification or a higher risk where council would need investment in equipment to actually do. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks. So essentially you're saying that it would cost us more rather than less by using our own employees to perform these services, or additional employees employed by this establishment to perform these services?
Yeah, similar to the previous item, we would need some planning and investment to make that occur, which includes depot space, buildings, employees and equipment to do that work.
Thanks, John.
Just a question, please, John. Christy, same thing again, I suppose. The non-conforming part's always a genuine concern for me. You know, we want to encourage as many of our local businesses to play an active role and be able to benefit from providing the services. And I understand the importance of the conforming part. What else have we got to do to encourage local businesses to be able to be in the best position to be conforming? And I suppose the open-ended question is probably very similar to the agenda item just discussed, is that do the others that perhaps are non-conforming, are they going to come, will they get the opportunity to meet with you, have a talk about it and re-tender at some stage for any associated services in a time of demand? Help me with this, please.
Yes, thank you for your question. We do have the refresh capability within this contract as well. So yes, we will be able to refresh at any point down the track. And also the one thing that we can do is really encourage our suppliers that aren't successful in these processes to seek feedback. My team is more than happy to sit down with them and run them through their submission and advise them on how they can improve it for future tenders.
Thanks, Councillor Branthwaite. Another one, Councillor Churchill.
Is there a common denominator in the non-conforming? Is it just a one common thing, or is it a variety of things?
There is a variety of things. Sometimes it's we're missing safety documentation that was asked for in the request. Sometimes it's not signing their offer. Sometimes it's not including attachments that were specifically requested within the invitation. So I guess companies that are tendering or responding to quotes for council, the best thing they can do is follow the checklist and use the checklist at the front of the package before they submit to make sure that they've done everything and they've included everything as requested.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think there's, but obviously this will all get brought up within the breakdown of those ones that didn't supposedly conform, and hopefully improve their tender packages, not only with this council but also with other councils around the countryside as well. Thank you.
No further questions. Do I have a mover, please? Move Councillor Hanson, seconded by Councillor Cameron. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is G3.8, which is supply of water meters. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Item G3.8 seeks approval to enter into a contract for the supply and delivery of water meters from Elster Metering. Point of note that this doesn't include installation, it is supply of the meters only. Council went to tender and received 3 conforming offers were received. The submission from Elster Metering ranked the highest in the evaluation process. Council spends around $290,000 per year on new water meters.
Councillor Churchill, were you moving or you have a question?
Yeah, no, I think the obvious question that jumped out at me on this particular agenda item was that when we, and help me with this please, because your recommendation is that it's 1 year for the contract, And we understand the importance of this service, but in your two previous agenda items, G 3.6, which is your mowing and slashing, and 3.7, arboriculture and associated services, we're offering 2 by 2. And then we come to the water meter, be it installation and Elster's experience, and we're offering 1 and 4 by 1. So I'm just trying to come to an understanding of why is it that we're not offering something similar for sustainability. 1 year, in my opinion, for local business is whilst it's beneficial, I'd like to think that perhaps why aren't we considering a 2 by 2 by 2 instead of a 1 by, or is there some, well, give me an indication so that I can be comforted in my own mind that there's a reason why it has to be renewed every 9 months or 10 months. Renewed or reviewed, please.
And that was the request of the business unit being water service delivery for 1 by 1 by 1. Typically with this sort of gear, it allows you to review the technology that's on offer year by year.
So you're indicating the 1 by 1 by 1 by 1 over 5 years is because of the continual change of technology?
Potentially, yes. It allows us the option to review what they have on offer.
Okay, I can accept that. Yep. Thank you.
Smart meters, I see in the report. It says they have the ability to be compatible. Yep.
Sorry, could we expand a bit on that? Because
Well, 1 year they're smart and next year they get smarter.
There's John, are you able to explain smart meters to the gallery or those watching?
So I'm
live?
told that smart meters can be bolted to or attached to the water meters that are already installed in the ground. So
The idea is they would send information, provide when you're using water when you're not meant to be, or you're using excess water, and does that go like to an app, or does it come back to council? Can it identify leaks to the residents as well? These are some of the things smart meters are promised to do.
That'd be dependent on what we went for in a scope for the smart meter thing. Our GM at SAP's going to chime in.
Yeah, Mark. We might get Mark.
Mayor Matt,
Francis to speak.
while the General Manager's finding his way to the microphone, can I just come back to my point, I suppose, in trying to understand, you're indicating because of the change of technology, and I suppose this is where Councillor Muscat may be coming from, and I won't assume that, but you're indicating that we'll install a particular smart meter. Help me with this, help me. We're going to install a certain smart meter this year, and then we're going to review the contract and the delivery of that service, and then next year, because that smart meter is no longer smart because there's another smarter one, we have another area with smarter meters, and so we'll have a different meter.
If I may, through you, Mayor.
Go to Mark Francis, maybe.
It's a long walk just to basically agree with what you said, Mayor, that that's exactly how it will work. And to answer your question, Councillor Churchill, the meters will work just looking at the flow rate. What changes is the ability to monitor that. So what we can do is retrofit our current stock and our future stock with the emerging technologies. So it's an add-on onto the actual physical meter, which gives us the ability to remotely monitor flow rates and gives us an opportunity to future-proof the fleet to make sure that we can fit any emerging technologies as they come along.
I think it's fantastic, and we've been waiting for this for a long time.
Oh no, I'm totally supportive of the smart meters, there's no doubt about that, but obviously in 5 years' time they'll be the smartest.
They may be. I hope I'm smarter in 5 years' time too. This question of smart meters is a different question to this tender. Yep.
Sorry, Councillor Muscat, yes?
just so we actually have an expression of interest out there, and when do we expect to see anything from that?
It's out in the market currently, and I would suspect we may be bringing something up here in maybe April, maybe May. Yeah.
Okay, no, just checking. That's what I just was interested in understanding a bit more, but thank you.
Yeah. Any further questions? Councillor Trevor.
Thanks, Mayor. I've often warned of the dangers of automation when it comes to impacting the future livelihoods of employees in this region. But I take it at some stage we will become so sophisticated with smart meters that we won't need meter readers anymore, and you'll be able to read those meters from 101 Gundoon Street and send out notices accordingly, or a computer will send them out without an employee organising that too. Is that the path we're heading towards with these smart meters, that everything will be read from a central computer base and nobody will need to do any legwork in relation to the reading of meters, and then the meters once read will be sent out by a computer for a computer to pay those charges? Is that where we're heading?
Through you, Mayor, if I may.
Sorry, Mark.
Councillor Trevor, the intention is that the effort is replaced, so that the shoe leather isn't worn in doing that, but there will be other work associated with it that's not currently been identified. So in my previous roles where I have automated and used process automation in the past, the roles have changed. So there is quality assurance roles, there is data assurance roles which aren't currently identified or needed at the moment, but we need to look after the automation, and that's how, as we go into new technology, we need to look at what the future of work looks like. The plan in the next year is to do a defined pilot of smart meter technology, probably within the Miriam Vale region, because it's a nice enclosed area for us, and we've got a limited number of meters. We can understand what the impacts are, how the data comes back, and once we've done that pilot, we'll have a better idea of what the actual impact will be on the workforce. But ultimately, yes, it will mean that we will be able to get much more data, much more frequently, without the cost associated with increasing the human component in that.
Okay, councillors, any further questions? No? Councillor Goodluck, yes.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just the last tender we did for water meter reading was a number of years ago, and we had, from memory, the meters that were being installed were capable of being retrofitted with this smart meter technology. Is that still the case, and that will all tie into our future plans with this tender?
That is correct. That fact doesn't change.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I'll move the recommendation, Mayor Matt, if you don't mind.
Thank you. Looking for a seconder, please. Thank you. Councillor Branthwaite. All in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you. We have a couple more items before we have a confidential item. We have the G3.9, which is the naming of infrastructure assets at the Phillip Street Communities and Family Precinct. And I'll hand over to the General Manager of Customer Experience, Rob Huth, and Kylie Lee, I believe, as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, councillors. The purpose of this report is to request the inclusion of 3 names in the approved place names register for naming of buildings at the Phillip Street Communities Families Precinct. The proposal has been assessed against the requirements of Council's naming of infrastructure assets policy and corporate standard. Our office's recommendation is to name 3 of the buildings in the traditional owner language. The proposed names include Nalil, meaning all of us in Garang language, Guma meaning shield in the Waili language, and Nachi meaning family in the Garang language. Consultation occurred with the 4 traditional owner groups, and these names were provided and endorsed by the groups to be used to name the buildings. And the name of the community meeting place building is yet to be selected. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I support those 3 names. I'd like to suggest that the community meeting place be named after our former councillor Maxine Bruce, because in the Gladstone region that stands for community. And I'd like to add that to item 1. And I'd actually like to put that in there. I have another thing I'd like to raise first, but if there are any comments on that, councillors?
Thanks, Rob, General Manager. You've indicated that there's been engagement with the three traditional custodians of the land that you've outlined there, Garang, Bailey, Garang. Was there any requirement for any consultation or engagement with representatives from Port Curtis Coral Coast Group? Can you help me with that, please?
Councillor Churchill, if I can answer this one for you. We have consulted with the elders of both the three traditional owner groups, which is protocol per the PCCC's approach to naming, to adding language to assets. All elders have given approval to utilise those names. Tarablang Bunda have advised that due to their locality, their presence is majority in Bundaberg. Therefore, they felt naming an asset in Gladstone wasn't really their preference. So that's why there's an absence of the Tarablang Bunda. Daniel Reeves from the PCCC has endorsed the addition of this language and the utilisation of that language. We've been very intentional in the naming of these assets, in giving them traditional names that align with the intent of the service delivery from those buildings.
Thank you for that. That's the answer I would have expected to get. So you have that approval, be it sanction. Can I ask if you've got that in writing?
We certainly do, Councillor Churchill.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Grady.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm in favour of these names. I'm just wondering about the signposting. Are you going to have brackets and how people can spell them out? Because I know people will struggle with saying the names until they get to know them.
Point. So with all of the names, we will have the pronunciation underneath and also the meaning of that name. Yeah.
Thank you, Kylie. So if I'm adding Maxime Bruce to point B, point 2 would be D. What building is that referred to? It's the community meeting room?
So, Mr Mayor, that would be, if you chose to name it, it would be the Maxime Bruce Community Meeting Place.
I'd like to add that in as an amendment to point 2 as item D, the Maxime Bruce Community Meeting Place. Can I, without accepting the first three first, am I able to separate that, do you think, Brooke? And because I'd like to add something else afterwards, but I don't want to confuse the two.
You can choose to make resolutions on the item separately if you wish. You would have to move them individually.
Yeah.
First.
Can you move the second one without the first one, because the first one's adding them to the name in the register?
The first one needs to be undertaken first to be put on the names register before proceeding to actually allocating them to an infrastructure asset.
Thanks. All right. Well, that confuses a little bit more, but that's okay. I'd like to add that into the recommendation, as I said, point 2D, Maxime Bruce Community Meeting Room. And for item 1, include the three names on the approved name register. I'd like to add a D to Chris Trevor and E, Ken O'Dowd, to the naming register. I'm not suggesting that those names be added to name buildings at Phillip Street Community Precinct. I'm just suggesting they should be added to the names register. And here's a perfect opportunity for me to add those. And I now note that Councillor Trevor would have a conflict in this item.
Ma'am, Burnett.
Sorry, Mayor, that came out of the blue and totally unexpected, so I think I might leave.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor.
Apologies, I was just going to suggest that in point 1 it says include 3 traditional language names. So you may want to put a separate item for those 2 names to be added to the names register, as I'm not certain they're a traditional language name.
Fair call. They definitely not. And furthermore, that the names Chris Trevor and Ken O'Dowd be added to the names register as well, please.
We will record that as point 3. Yep.
Can I just confirm for the minutes, Mr Mayor, that the point for D is Maxine Bruce Community Meeting Place rather than Community Meeting Room?
Community meeting place sounds wonderful, thank you. I'd like to put that motion. And I know I haven't flagged this with any councillors, and the first time they're hearing it is now. But that's how this council should work. It should be all done in public for the community to see. Seconded,
Are
Councillor
you moving
Goodluck?
the whole motion? You moving the whole motion?
Yes. Seconded, Councillor
Happy to
Goodluck?
support that, Mr Mayor.
You happy to have conversation or discussion now, councillors? No opposition, no additional items?
Maybe you might want to, for public interest, to explain to people why you're doing it.
Absolutely. Maxine Bruce obviously was integral in it goes back to the Social Infrastructure Strategic Plan, which identified Phillip Street as the #1 priority project for the Gladstone region in about 2008. Of course, she's a former regional councillor for Gladstone region, a former deputy mayor of Calliope Shire, and she was already on our names register, appropriately, the building, and no one has supported the community precinct more so than Maxine, other than probably myself, but that's that's what a lot of people say. It's become the Mayor's project. It's not. It's a community project, and I think that it's very appropriate that we name a facility in this, a building in this facility after Maxine. And in terms of Ken and Chris, I know that Ken O'Dowd particularly has put a lot of funding into this project as well, $20 million in fact in upgrading Phillip Street, and a few $1 million towards buildings. And I think whether it's in this place or somewhere, with Ken O'Dowd announcing his retirement in Flynn, it's appropriate that he be added to our names register for the 5 or so terms he served as our federal member in Canberra. And also, of course, Chris Trevor being the very first federal member for Flynn, it would be appropriate, and I don't think it's inappropriate to put one in without the other. I think it would be inappropriate to name one without the other, and that's what just adding to the names register, and I'm sure there'll be a building or a bridge or a park or somewhere that a future council will be able to name after them, and that's the reason for that. Thank you. And I'll put the motion now. It's moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor. All in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. We will now break for morning tea.
Celebrate Easter in Gladstone, the gateway to the southern Great Barrier Reef. The marina comes alive with harbourside celebrations all Easter long weekend. Enjoy the Harbour Festival's carnival rides and family-friendly entertainment, and visit new attraction Sculptures by Gladstone Harbour. Over 18s can celebrate the end of the Brisbane to Gladstone yacht race at the village's line crossing party, or enjoy fresh produce at the Yachtsman's long lunch or the seafood festival. Accommodation packages available. Easter in Gladstone. Why would you be anywhere else?
Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Well, today we announced the beneficiaries for the 2021 Santos GLNG Mayor's Charity Ball, and I'm very pleased to announce that the charities this year are Nullandu Health Services, Rosebery Community Services, Mindcare Gladstone, and of course our good friends at Zonta are back on again as beneficiaries. We've raised almost $400,000 over the years for the local charities in the community, and we're going to do our absolute best to raise as much as we can again this year. And thanks to our sponsors and of course those who turn up and buy the tickets, the money will be distributed right across the Gladstone region. Well, the ball this year, the theme is Starry Night, and it's on the 29th of May, and tickets are on sale on the 1st of March, so we're encouraging everyone to jump on Council's website or contact the team at the GECC. It's 4972 822 and make sure you don't miss out. It's always a fantastic night, obviously. 450 tickets on sale, they will sell out, and we've got the fantastic Hamilton Band coming back from Brisbane. They were here for our New Year's Eve event a couple of years ago, so people will remember them from that. It's going to be fantastic. Don't miss out on getting your tickets for this event.
Celebrate Easter in Gladstone, the gateway to the southern Great Barrier Reef. The marina comes alive with harbourside celebrations all Easter long weekend. Enjoy the Harbour Festival's carnival rides and family-friendly entertainment, and visit new attraction Sculptures by Gladstone Harbour. Over 18s can celebrate the end of the Brisbane to Gladstone yacht race at the village's line crossing party, or enjoy fresh produce at the Yachtsman's long lunch or the seafood festival. Accommodation packages available. Easter in Gladstone. Why would you be anywhere else?
Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Well, today we announced the beneficiaries for the 2021 Santos GLNG Mayor's Charity Ball, and I'm very pleased to announce that the charities this year are Nullandu Health Services, Rosebery Community Services, Mindcare Gladstone, and of course our good friends at Zonta are back on again as beneficiaries. We've raised almost $400,000 over the years for the local charities in the community, and we're going to do our absolute best to raise as much as we can again this year. And thanks to our sponsors and of course those who turn up and buy the tickets, the money will be distributed right across the Gladstone region. Well, the ball this year, the theme is Starry Night, and it's on the 29th of May, and tickets are on sale on the 1st of March, so we're encouraging everyone to jump on Council's website or contact the team at the GECC. It's 4972 822 and make sure you don't miss out. It's always a fantastic night, obviously. 450 tickets on sale, they will sell out, and we've got the fantastic Hamilton Band coming back from Brisbane. They were here for our New Year's Eve event a couple of years ago, so people will remember them from that. It's going to be fantastic. Don't miss out on getting your tickets for this event. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, officers. The next item on the agenda is deputations. We don't have any deputations this morning. We have councillors' reports. I'll ask Councillor Hanson, if possible, to just give a brief on the LawMac meeting this week.
Yes, Mr Mayor. LawMac actually stands for Local Authority Waste Management Advisory Committee, and they were primarily a North Queensland group of councils with 30 member councils. There are over 30 member councils now. They invited councillors from Rockhampton, and we were Gladstone was the last to be invited. We've been in the group for about 8 months, which is great. The councils spread from the Cookshire in the north to Gladstone, as I said, in the south, and Mount Isa and Berkshires out into the west. Meetings are held quarterly, and the first one will be here, as Mr Mayor said, this Thursday and Friday in Gladstone. Councils are supported by state agencies and waste industry groups. The current chair is Rockhampton Deputy Mayor Neil Fisher. We will, as a group from council, be touring with the group the Monaraby landfill, inspecting our now landfill cell, which is almost completed. Generally, I think, John, you would say that?
Yeah, the lining and the hole in the ground per se is completed.
Actually, we'll be showing off the region to about 70 delegates who will be attending, which is great. And I can make special mention to the likes of Celicia Faulkner, who's been on the part of council's group looking after the rebuild, and Nathan Wintour, who's our acting waste manager. I think Nathan will be as well showing, being a guide on one of the buses when we tour the landfill. So first time in Gladstone, welcome 60 to 70 delegates, which is always great for the economy. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hanson. Is there any further council reports? No further council reports. I have no urgent business, but I do have a notice of motion. So a notice of motion G7.1 is the Boyne-Burnett Inland Rail Trail by Councillor O'Grady, Councillor Trevor. Can I throw to one of the councillors to speak to that?
Thanks, Mayor. Councillors, Mayor, you'll have before you a notice of motion which is tabled by myself. Unlike previous notices of motion which I've put before this council, I would hope that it's not as controversial as some of mine have been. But essentially, it's designed to, I guess it's not a starting point, but I guess it's to continue along the journey and to ascertain how committed council is to proceeding further with this project, including but not limited to its tourism benefits, its health benefits, and its economic development benefits by partnershiping with the BBIRT, the state government, for which funding is currently available, and the reason why this notice of motion is being brought, and possibly the federal government in the lead up to any future federal election, or for that matter, as a general consideration under the Building Better Regions Fund as this project progresses. So for me, it's a are we in or are we out type proposition. It's designed essentially to flush out councillors and the Mayor's thoughts on where we go with this project. It's designed to, the recommendation is quite wide, and it's been drafted deliberately so, to not only to provide for future funding from the state government, but as I say, in conjunction with or standalone funding from the federal government, in partnership perhaps with the Gladstone Regional Council for the future funding, design, planning, implementation, and hopefully completion of this, what I perceive to be a fantastic project, not only for the Boyne Valley region, but also the Gladstone region, Queensland and Australia as a whole. The recommendation is quite straightforward. It's that we apply for any funding available to support the Boyne-Burnett Inland Rail project, and as I say, it's been framed in wide terms to contemplate future applications for funding as it becomes available. But in this particular notice of motion, in particular, that it apply for funding which may be available now under the Rail Trail Local Government Grants Program, and understand some funding availability is still open, with a commitment, I might add, from the BBIRT of match funding in the order of $80,000, which the BBIRT has received from the Bradley Wolf Foundation recently, and is available to be spent in conjunction with any funding that the Gladstone Regional Council may be successful in achieving. I should mention that I do have to hand on my emails a letter from Megan Ray, President of the Technology for Ageing and Disability Queensland, which says, and I quote, "Dear Board, I wish to inform you that at the meeting of the Bradley Wolf Braveheart Association, Inc., held on 26 August 2020, the members agreed to wind up the affairs of the above association and to donate its assets to other charities that provide services to people with disabilities both locally and statewide. Following several discussions with Councillor Desley O'Grady and our viewing of the information provided by Mark McLaughlin, it was further decided that the Boyne-Burnett Inland Rail Trail Inc. should be one of those recipients. Members agreed that the sum of $80,000 would be given to the BBIRT Inc. for development of the disability access as outlined. Our stipulations are: 1, the donation is to be used towards the provision of disability access and facilities around Barramoon siding, as described in the presentation by Mark McLaughlin, and 2, the donation is recognised by way of naming a significant component of the facility with reference either to Bradley Wolf or BW Braveheart. Once we receive confirmation that these terms are acceptable, we will prepare a cheque accordingly. I understand that confirmation has been received and the cheque is to hand. Is that correct? Yes. Yep. So the proposal in relation to this funding is to install signage in accordance with the design standard implemented on the Brisbane Valley Rail Trail, and you've seen copies of that in your material presented today, preparing the finished surface of the proposed rail trail sidings and disability access to Tunnel 6, of which you'll all be aware of, shade structures with associated water tanks and all ability toilets, gates, grids and handrails and associated fencing and temporary shade structures, marquees, table signage, marketing material. I think that about encompasses everything that I would want to report on today in support of the notice of motion. As I say, it's been framed in wide terms to accommodate the potential for any future funding in addition to the specific funding which will be applied for as part of this notice of motion, including match funding of $80,000, which has been provided by the BBIRT through the Braveheart Foundation. I think that's about it.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Questions? Councillor Churchill has a question.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mayor Matt. I've actually got a couple of questions here that I'd like to get clarification on. If I make a point to start with is that I have been supportive of this project in principle right from the beginning because of the importance outlined by Councillor Trevor and many others around this board table. The other part also is that, yes, this is a developing project. Again, when I hear Councillor Trevor indicate we're either in or we're out, that is not dissimilar to the debate that we had originally when we started first talking about the proposal for this project, whether we in local government land, we're either in or we're out. So it draws my attention to the current resolution that we have in relation to the Boyne-Burnett Inland Rail Trail, to try and work out whether this particular notice of motion, or more so the council's recommendation, is in conflict with that original current resolution, of whether we are a participant or whether we're on the sideline, a supporter. So that's the first question. And do we need to amend that resolution, or or maybe it's not in conflict? Maybe this is just an ancillary to that particular resolution. The second question I've got is that if we're in or we're out, I would still like to have a very comprehensive understanding of the ownership of this asset. Who owns it and who will own it? Who owns it now? Well, I've read some conflicting information from Department of DTMR as such. So if we're going on this journey in relation to the development of this what I consider will be an absolute major attraction to this destination. It's a determination. I spoke earlier on another agenda item about, the potential for cost shifting, and the one thing that jumped out at the LGAQ cost shifting inquiry is sometimes it gets delegated to local government because effectively no one else can apply for it, or it gets devolved to local government whether we like it or not. We just seem to end up with the assets. So I'd like to get an understanding of that. And if this recommendation, albeit becomes a motion, I'd just like to have an understanding of who or whom within the Gladstone Regional Council will take on this role, because I see this being, and the word, as you rightly articulated, Councillor Trevor, is the word any funding. And appropriately, they may very well come because of our advocacy, and it was in our advocacy document for the recent state elections. I would imagine it's also going to be a project in the advocacy document coming into this next federal election. That's good too, but if we've got to apply for it, I see time, effort, commitment and expertise by officers from the Gladstone Regional Council, and I'm not wanting to distract from what their priorities are. So I suppose this is a question, my third question perhaps is to the Madam CEO, in advance, that if this motion is successful, who or whom will be the officer who will be making these applications, because maybe I missed something in the original resolution that I was of the belief that the BBERT people or their team and their people would appropriately be filling out a lot of these application forms, and maybe that might still be the case, that they could fill out the forms and give them to council to review or overview. So I'd just like to have those three particular points responded to, if that was possible.
Yes. I forgot the first one, but...
the first one is the current resolution is that...
ownership. The second one was role, and I thought you tied the second one into the third one. I'm not sure whether you got two questions or three, but anyway, I'll defer to our experts on the matter, and I'm sure Carly would love to tell us a little bit more.
Is the recommendation in conflict with our current resolution?
Carly's going to answer that one, so let's see how we go. I like the new BBERT. That's it, BBERT. No one does acronyms better than us in Gladstone. BBERT. Over to you, Carly.
Thank you. Good morning, Council. So I think the first question is around, is there a conflict? I don't see a direct conflict, but it does potentially add some confusion to the current resolution. The intent behind the current resolution is not to own or have any ongoing maintenance costs associated with the rail trail, and was just to enter into to apply for funding to undertake design, pass those designs on to the committee. That's the intent behind the current resolution. As I said, I don't think moving forward with this notice of motion isn't a direct conflict, but it certainly does provide some challenges for us around ownership. Your next question was around ownership. The head funding agreement that we have with the state for any of our funding agreements, which this one would come under, does actually suggest that we must have ownership. We don't have a copy of the funding agreement that would be handed down for this particular round because we haven't applied and haven't been made, hasn't been made approved. However, the head funding agreement, which all funding agreements the funding guidelines direct us to the head funding agreement, and it says we must have ownership. We don't have ownership. Doesn't mean we can't apply. We can apply. We would consider ourselves to potentially be ineligible. But as you've seen, the department has indicated that they'd potentially review it anyway. But from a technical point of view, we would consider ourselves to be ineligible for that reason.
Councillor Churchill, can I just say, Councillor Churchill, in regards to the any funding, would you be more comfortable if it said council apply for any current funding? Does that answer your...
Well, I'm just wanting to get clarification. I think if it was any current funding, I'd be quite comfortable with that. And I think at this particular stage we need to make that determination, whether today is that day to determine whether we're all-encompassing, or whether we're out, because I still believe that the original resolution, and I'm coming from a good governance perspective at this stage, is that our original resolution, which still sits in this council, and there's no notice of motion to amend that resolution, effectively says that BBERT is the group that will drive and develop and have that, be it ex officio ownership of that rail corridor.
Yeah.
You know, so and I'm not quite sure whether the Councillor Trevor, Councillor O'Grady are prepared to accept a minor modification of the current funding that's before us, so that we can allow some further debate on that particular point, because the segue from what you're saying, General Manager, is that if, for example, and we're still debating it, if the local government, the Gladstone Regional Council, takes ownership of the whole corridor within our Gladstone region, not necessarily for North Burnett, that might come at a later date if there was ever further amalgamations, but that's another matter, to our boundary, I would also like to ask if there's a report could be provided from our Chief Finance or our General Manager for Finance and everything. How do we fund the depreciation of this asset if we were to take ownership of it? So there's some questions still begs. But my third question at this stage was, I suppose to Madam CEO, was that if this resolution, whatever the connotation will be on this resolution to go forward to get this funding, who or whom will be doing it? I'm only assuming our funding and grants officer would be the one, or is it BBERT that will do the application? I mean, I'd like to get that on record today as well.
So any activity undertaken in-house would sit with our strategic projects team, so the strategic project specialist. We have one currently allocated to this project. We don't have this current workload allocated to them, but that's where this project sits. We would need to increase the amount of time allocation that we have allocated for this project if we were to undertake. Even if the committee does support by providing the content and providing it, we do need to make sure that that it's completed adequately. There's also a number of other activities we would probably need to undertake. So if we move away from today with a notice of motion or a resolution to put an application in, there's a number of activities we would need to undertake between now and putting the application in, such as getting an agreement between ourselves and the committee as to who's going to be responsible for the acquitting of the report. We've had similar instances in our history where we have funded community groups. We've learned a lot of lessons and we need to put those in place.
Okay, thanks for that. I'm sure others will have questions and I might come back if I've got any more. Thanks, Mayor. Mate.
I have Councillor Hanson, Councillor Branthwaite, and good luck, and then Muscat. So
I think Councillor
over to you,
Well,
Councillor
thank you,
Branthwaite.
Councillor Hanson. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think in the ownership side of things, from what I gather, and I've been involved with it for a while as well in the previous role, that the corridor is actually a licensed to be able to use the corridor. From what I gather, the TMR want to still maintain ownership over the corridor all the way right through. So as far as ownership's concerned, I think that the likes of BBERT will be the licensee. But I noticed that in the application, Carly, there's a lot of onus on council to run a project, and it'd be interesting to see how, if we were to go apply for this, how that would be managed. So, yeah, just the final detail. I've had a look at the application and that, and going, wow, it's going to be interesting to see how we can get around that without, being supportive of it to BERT, but not running the project as such.
Yeah, I guess there's a difference, supportive but also accountable at the end of the day. So if we're putting the application in, we will be accountable for everything. Just in case I wasn't clear before, If we apply for funding to erect signage or build toilets or anything like that, if we are successful and we do build them, we will own those assets. So we will, regardless of the ownership of the land and the land tenure, we will own those assets and we will be responsible for the ongoing ownership and maintenance of them. And some of them, not entirely sure yet because we're still waiting for the exact details from the committee in writing, but it would appear that some of them aren't within Gladstone Regional Council boundaries, are within North Burnett.
Sorry, I missed that last part. Maybe
It would appear as though some of those assets that we might be successful in applying for and then subsequently building and owning would not be within the Gladstone Regional Council region. That's a question that we currently have.
That's being the top of the range at Barryman Road is actually in the neighbour's yard.
Careful. Councillor Hanson, Goodluck, Muscat, and then I think O'Grady would like to comment as well.
I've got a couple of questions, but can Babert apply for this funding next year? My point there is that by that time, council may have fulfilled some of the obligations of land tenure by that time, and I think it's a big risk moving at this time before that. Can they apply again next year?
It would absolutely be officers' preference to apply after the designs are completed and after we have an idea of the staged approach that we might take and where we would want to go first. That would obviously be ideal. However, as far as the funding, the funding round is currently closed officially. There is money left over unspent and they have indicated to us that they will assess applications until the money has run out. So, and the eligibility is for local government also. So based on the information I know, only local government can apply and we're uncertain if there will be future funding rounds.
Yeah, and just on further that, I moved the motion, and I'm not going to rescind any part of it. I think Councillor Churchill seconded it, and it gave us enough direction, I believe, for council to move the proposed project forward. And they have been using this opportunity appropriately. The investment decision framework for sound investment decisions is being used. Councillors, if you do remember, councillors, the previous decision was to utilise this framework at all times, not to move away from it. And I think this is very much outside that that framework. We have no detailed designs here, and they haven't been submitted as yet. So I think if you look at the risks that were given to us in the SOC report on the 23rd of February, where there's a bit more detailed explanation of where we are up to in the project, when the question was first asked, could we supply funding? It says the infrastructure constructed without any alignment to pending rail trail designs, master planning and/or specifications. Additionally, there's less purposeful use of the funding required for the rail trail. Without former tenure, it says it's a very big risk that we undertake this. And it also says that the public perception, if things go pear-shaped with this application and side project, that if there's any rework, you said it before, it'd be council's problem to do it. So I really can't support it at this time. I do support us moving as we actually moved, and what Councillor Churchill has been talking about earlier. This is outside that, and I think it's too much of a risk for council to take at this time. I think, if the opportunity arose next year when we had some idea of what the land tenure was, I would definitely support it.
Councillor Goodluck.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I want to support this project, but my main concerns is that this sort of conflicts with the investment decision framework. Mainly my concerns are in the application. We've got a number of areas where first of all, the applicant has to be a council by the looks, not Bert. So we're certainly stepping into a space there where we were trying to be a supporter of the project, but not necessarily an owner of the project. That was sort of my understanding of our position from the start. In the application, it actually sets out that land ownership, has the council secured land tenure or any lease arrangements? Does council have all necessary approvals to allow the project to proceed? I'm not sure that we are there. And even project risk management register. Submit a completed risk management register to provide details of any potential risk that may impact on the commencement and or completion of the project, and identify mitigation strategies. So from my understanding, we need to get through that body of work because that's a very specific body of work that we need to have to align with this application. And then further down, we've got to consider the whole of life costs, the return on investment. We've also got to provide details on the ongoing operational maintenance and replacement costs for the project and outline how these costs will be met. So I'm not I don't have any of that information. I want to support this project, but I do think that we have to do it in a way that makes sure we undertake all of that work, that important work that will make sure that we can make an absolutely informed decision when we support this project, if we choose to go further. So unless I'm mistaken, the only other thing as well, the funding is absolutely for, as the motion reads, is absolutely for infrastructure upgrades to the project. So we've got installation of signage, preparing finished surfaces, shade structures, gates, grids and handrails. So I'm just I'm not sure if there's any extra information, Councillor Grady, that you can give me, but I feel like there's a big piece of work that needs to be done before we get to this application stage. But just as a question, how long does this is a state government grant, is that right? And how long is this open for? And even with the email, I'm sure it's, with the best of intentions from the Department of Transport of Main Roads, but it's a little bit vague in any, there's certainly no guarantees or commitments that I could see very strongly in that email. And it even points us to a federal grant, which is a different grant, so I just feel like there's a bit of work that we need to do before we get to this stage.
So the Burt Group are doing a risk management plan at the moment which they have to abide by with DTMR. The Burt Group surely would apply for this grant if they could get it, but it has to go through local government. So, they've got the $80,000, but so that it makes it difficult with DTMR, getting council to actually be the people to apply. So the thing is it'll always stay DTMR's land. The Burt Group have got the access permit from Gayndah through to Tarragoola. And so they're doing a risk management plan. They're doing as in sidings and stuff like that, but they weren't going to get the information for this grant until whether it gets passed today, because they can supply every bit of information that they've actually asked for there. Speaking with Craig England from DTMR, he said with the ownership of the land, he doesn't believe that question probably should have been in the application form. So otherwise, he said he will be, and in the letter also it does say that there is a strong chance that Burt Group will manage the rail trail at least in the short to medium term. So they will be managing it.
If, as I said, I'm sure the best of intentions from Craig England, but there's still no guarantees or commitments if we're making applications for, at the end of the day, what's potentially a lot of money, and for an asset that potentially becomes owned and managed by council, on the back of an email where we've got commentary where someone doesn't believe that, you know, that might happen, or he thinks that so not to take anything away from the intentions of DTMR. I know that they're trying to do their best to get this project, but I'd just like to have confidence, absolute confidence and certainty in where we're heading, and make sure that we've got all that body of work. And I think if council is to be the applicant, certainly from this application, we've got to have done our own, you know, risk management mitigation strategies and plans, etc. And sure, we'll work with Bert as best we can, but we can't sort of expect Bert to do a risk management plan for council, give it to us, and then if they've missed something, or if something goes wrong in that process, ultimately we are responsible and accountable for it. But so, Mike, is there a reason that, you know, I'm not sure when this grant fund closes, is there a reason that we can't go through this process and get this body of work done first, and then we'll know exactly, we'll be able to answer all these questions and then apply for that funding? Is there a time? I can't see in the motion that there's any time constraints. Is there an urgency about this, or?
There is. This actually closed at the end of December, and there is money that has been left over. So they have been personally asked the council to apply for the money through obviously they've sent us the email, they've sent us all the information, they've sent us all the body of work, as in the appendix, you know, what to make the disability trial out of and all that sort of stuff as well. So I know that the Burt Group have got quotes and stuff like that for toilet blocks, and, you know, sort of to be prepared if they had to go and help council with this. But like I said earlier, the Burt Group, I'm sure, would apply for this in a heartbeat if council didn't have to be the main people to apply for it. So I don't know. And also, this money doesn't need to be expended till next year as well. So it's just some money, a hangover of some money, and we could keep in the bank account for the next 12 months without spending it as well. But it's just there, and if we don't apply for it, you know, you're not eligible to get it if you're not applying.
Thanks, Councillor O'Grady. Councillor Muscat has a question, then Councillor Churchill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just reflecting on a couple of the things that I've been hearing, and also that I read over, the last few days, and also the information we've been given at a previous meeting on the 21st of February that Councillor Hanson referred to before. I remember one of the first decisions I made at this council was to support that motion that we got on the books, that I believe Councillor Hanson and Councillor Churchill moved and seconded. When we talk about whether we're in or out, well, I think we in. So this project forms one of the 7 projects that we have as priority projects of this council. So in the last few months, where we have also been deciding or talking about what's going to be our priority projects coming into the next financial year, I'm pretty confident that, well, I can't say for sure, but it seems that this isn't going anywhere. We're still in the same way we were before. So we don't have 300 projects, and this is one of those projects. We have 77 priority projects, and this is one of 7. So if that doesn't mean that we are in, I don't really know what it is to be in. Now, we, over the last probably, 2 years I've been here, or a bit more, I've also learned about the investment decision framework project that we were undertaking, and I think that's one of the most significant and, I guess, impactful projects that we will have in this council going forward. That this project, in which we spend a fair amount of money on, is guiding our future investment, smart investment, cost-effective investment, return on investment mechanisms that will make sure that we actually roll out projects correctly, not just for council, but for the community and for any other community groups that do partner with us. The process is very clear, and we are at an execute phase of this project after having applied for $330,000 from the Queensland Government Rail Trail Local Government Grant Program. We are undergoing concept designs. We are still, trying to work out, in the meantime, how we're going to manage the tenure situation. We have constant relationships with the community group that is working really hard to see this project happen. Now, to me, this notice of motion, first of all, to apply for any funding, that just straight away, it kind of puts me off. I mean, you don't just go and apply for any funding. Like, that's not what a smart business does. So I understand the intention. I think the project is wonderful. I love to see it happening, and I'm sure we will see it happening. But I cannot support us in this, to me, what it is a significant intrusion in the operations of the team that is delivering this project with our guidance. The investment decision framework is clear as to what the phases are and what we need to do. So jumping up because someone sent us an email and told us that we need to apply for something that is closed and then they got some money left over. I mean, we're not talking about $8 million. We're talking about $80,000. So there's lots of different opportunities out there to get money and to support this project, to leverage the other $80,000. I just don't understand why we will put this project at risk by, writing an incomplete application, by, doing things sort of like this last minute against what we decided in the past. And also, as Councillor Goodluck said before, we don't even know how much it's going to cost if we happen to have these toilets put in there now, or all these signs, or those will become council's property, and we have no idea as to how much it's going to cost us. It might end up costing us more if we actually don't do it following the concept designs or clear guidance on where to spend this money. So I think it's actually a disservice not just to us but to the project to just jump and do things without, I guess, following the process. So for that reason, I won't be supporting this notice of motion.
Mr. O'Grady, do you want to respond to that before I throw to Councillor Churchill?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also, I've been advised that with this funding, we can use that. If this funding goes ahead, we can use that to use that as a 50% funding as well. So, say if it was 160,000, we could apply for another 50%, whether it's building better regions or whatever else. So. We could utilise that, so we'll get 320,000. It's all about building the nest egg, I suppose.
Councillor Churchill.
Thanks, Mayor Matt. I've learned over the years one philosophy: don't you ever let a chance go by. But in light of saying that, I have no doubts that there's more work to be done in relation to, I suppose, gathering the information that's required. I recognise that Councillor Trevor at this stage, be it mover of the motion, will have the right of reply, which I would hope that Chris will take up that opportunity in the right of reply. Or would he be prepared to consider a minor modification in his motion and or recommendation that Council apply for this current funding that's available? But in light of saying that, I've got two questions I wanted to ask. One is, and I know I've asked this a few times before and I know the answer, but I need to ask it again. Is there a paradigm shift in amongst this? Because in reading the information, which is be it the email form that Councillor Goodluck rightfully referred to, is there some way that we can find in amongst this, in the absence of information or in the absence of the answers to the questions that we're posing here today, that we could apply for the funding and do one of two things? Local government could apply for the funding and bestow it, if that's the right word, or pass it on, delegate it, devolve it to an incorporated community group. And I know I keep getting told no, but I have seen that model that does work in other areas. It's called partnerships, but is the ability, and that's the question I think we need to be posing to DTMR, is there a way that local government can apply for it and not bequeath, bestow, pass on, call it whatever you like, to the community groups so that they can actually get on and do what they need to do? It does work in other philanthropic areas, and there are models on that. I'm not quite sure how well that is, because as you rightfully said, General Manager, it's the acquittal at the end of the day, is making sure that we fulfil all the requirements, that the money is spent wisely, etc., etc. Again, in cognizant of the lack of thorough information, is there some way that appropriately that we could apply for the funding and we can hold it in abeyance? We can apply for the funding and hold it in abeyance for a period of time, because Councillor Trevor rightfully said at the beginning, we're either in or we're out. And I'm tending to think now that this resolution, as it stands for any funding, Councillor Trevor, is that it is in conflict with the resolution that Councillor Hanson moved and that I seconded and that was supported previously. I believe that it is in conflict because we still need to clarify right now if we're in or out, or determining that this project, and we, as I said before, we had it in an advocacy document, and I have absolutely no doubts whatsoever when we lead into this next federal election that the candidates will want to be making a commitment from federal government funds to this project. So we need to have a further discussion, debate, and we need our officers, our general managers, to provide us with enough information that makes us make a determination that this project should be of regional significance from a local government perspective, or we allow Babert to get on and do what they appropriately want to and wish to do, independent of local government, because our original resolution says that we're going to support them wherever we possibly can. So again, I'll go back. Councillor Trevor's got the right of reply on this, but I'd like to pose those couple of questions to you, Madam General Manager, is that in relation to the funding, and pass it on, or can we get the funding and hold it in abeyance in our funds here at this stage until we can make that determination of this project being of regional significance?
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Do you mind if I just answer two quick ones that I've noted down from the various commentary? One is just confirming that this is in the assess phase of the investment decision framework at the moment, which is assessing what is the right solution before moving forward. There will be a future investment decision gate where Council could decide who At the moment, our intent is not us, but there is future opportunities to make those decisions. Also, in relation to potentially leveraging the funding that is absolutely available, for example, you could leverage the funding with BBRF, the Building Better Regions Fund, which is federal funding. But I just wanted to note that the work that we've been doing with the investment decision framework and the capital portfolio does give us a very strong prioritised pipeline that then helps direct what we should be applying for in those with those funds. And so therefore, we would bring that to council to decide what the priority would be, but there would potentially be other projects that you might want to consider. Now to Councillor Churchill's question around the funding. We have asked the department that. The direct answer we get is that they direct us back to the funding guidelines. I think it's pretty clear that the department want to have the accountability sit with local government on this. They definitely would like to empower local communities and local committees to undertake the work, but they want local government to have the accountability and hold that responsibility. Officers have looked at potentially what we could do, and I referred to it lightly before when I said that we would have some sort of funding agreement in place between council and the committee. We would want to see things like evidence of the bequeathed funds and how they can be spent, which, thank you, we can see you probably have that now. Asset ownership, which we know the ownership of the end assets would be ours, but some sort of arrangements around ongoing maintenance and the responsibility for improvements on those. Obtaining the necessary approvals and permits to undertake that work. As I mentioned before, not all of the work may be in our council region, so we want to ensure that that's there. Conditions accepting council from funding project costs. So if costs blow out or if there are extra costs that weren't considered, we want to ensure that obviously council is not asked to add any extra funding in to enable the acquittal of the project at the end, and any other conditions relevant for reporting and acquitting of the grant, and that would include things like the risk management plan that's indicated in the application. And I think Councillor Goodluck's correct that we would still need to undertake that kind of due diligence ourselves. It would be great if the committee is able to provide us their risk management plans, but if we're going to be accountable, we would need to do our own as well. So I think a funding agreement of sort can be in place between us and the committee, but at the end of the day, the accountability of the funding agreement between us and the state will still lie with us. Sorry, your second question around holding it in abeyance. If you don't mind, I might just check Erickson Noakes is online. My understanding is, I don't know this for sure, that the funding would... Hang on,
On the grant guidelines, it has to be expended by 30 June 2022.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric. Not required. That's what I thought it was, 2022 June. So that's not too far away in the scheme of things. So, you know, and we don't have the toilet blocks, for example, designed or the shades designed. I understand the committee has potentially been working towards those kinds of designs, but again, if we're going to own them, then we need to be involved in those designs and making sure that they are of the style and the type that we would put in place right across the trail, not just in one place. So
I understand that response is that, and Councillor Goodluck appropriately refers to it, it's in the guidelines. The guidelines clearly indicated correctly that the funding closed October last year. So in keeping with the guidelines, the money's still there and it's sort of open, but it's not. So that's what I was coming from. In amongst the black and white, are we trying to deal with some grey where we could appropriately apply for it and ask the department to keep it in abeyance until all the other work is done? That was opening. Mayor Matt, maybe this is a question to you appropriately, is that we're talking about a project here of significance that crosses two boundaries, and the North Burnett, and maybe you're more informed than I am in trying to get a greater understanding, because if we're working with Babert and we end up making whatever the commitment might be or not make the commitment in going forward, are we getting the same from our neighbours in the North Burnett of their level of commitment and activity and effort and everything else to identify that this project is truly a project of regional significance?
In short, I would say yes, but you could certainly ask Mayor Chambers that yourself, but certainly there seems to be a lot of support for the project in the North Burnett particular areas, and Councillor O'Grady is better to speak on it than I am. But before I throw to Councillor Goodluck as a question, Carly, can I go back to you? When you said ownerships of the assets at the end of the day would be ours, I see there's a few options in there, and I feel in the room that there's support for the project, but there's a bit of nervousness about this particular notice of motion, and maybe it will be amended. But if we were to prepare the finished surface of the proposed rail tracks, 80 grand wouldn't get you far anyway. You're not going to get a toilet block for $80,000. If you do, it's not going to have a roof or toilets. So don't think building a toilet block in the North Burnett is something that would be likely to be supported by council today. But if we apply for a grant, couldn't we specify that it had to be spent in the Gladstone region because we're applying for it, or we partner with the North Burnett and spend it together? But you know, that wouldn't be really fair to them that we ask them to put up the money and we get a grant fund. So perhaps I think $80,000, if you're preparing it for the finished surface, we could do that. Could we do that internally with our own staff and use the grant funding to pay staff to? So I've been on the track, and there's not a lot. There's a fair bit of work to get it to the final stage, but to get it to like a adventure trail, I think it's called, $80,000 would get you a fair distance. And if the other $80,000, which has been bequeathed to the Bebert group, that would have to be spent on a disability access, that could be spent in a section area. I'm just not sure. There's lots of options there, but we certainly wouldn't be left with owning the asset if all we're doing is upgrading the track. Is that not right?
I think internally we could redirect resources to suit any direction from council. Probably the biggest concern with that, though, is we have a current resolution that's asking us to undertake the concept designs, and those concept designs are to tell us what state of the track it should be and to what specifications the track should be delivered. So we would be proceeding ahead of that and doing some work, not having completed that work, and that would also impact the current scope of works for those concept designs, and it would impact the consultant that we have appointed and that entire project, and probably require then a variation to the scope of that project as well.
Can I pause then? Can we use the funding to pay for the consultant to do the concept designs?
We already have funding for that. That is funded work.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Goodluck.
Well, that was going to be my question. There are two project streams in the Rail Trail Local Government Grant Program. One is planning, which is A, feasibility study, B, a business case, or C, other, contributing to the planning of a recreational rail trail. The second stream is the delivery of projects. So, you know, I thank Councillor O'Grady and Councillor Trevor for their advocacy on this project, because all they're trying to do is drive it forward. But we've got that body of planning work to do. You just said that we've got funded work. Is it possible, if the motion is amended, that we apply for the planning stream, you know, potentially get $160,000 and spend whatever is necessary to go through all of that planning work that is needed to get us to a point where then we're in a much more secure position, and we can make some informed decisions about how we move forward. Is that something that we could look at?
Just want to make sure I understand your question. The current resolution that we have is to apply for that first stream and receive 100% funding to do the concept designs. We have applied, we have received, and we are now undertaking those concept designs. That work is underway. I think that's what you're asking, so the answer is yes, we are doing that.
So this is the fund that we got,
yes,
the funding for
the next...
So we're looking at trying to apply solely for the delivery stream under this notice of motion. Okay.
Councillor O'Grady.
Yeah, sorry. Just to your comment, Mr. Mayor. So the Barry Moon siding is actually in North Burnett Regional Council, and so Gladstone Regional Council's boundary comes in about 100 metres above the top tunnel, so tunnel number 6. So the through the funding agreement through Bradley Wolf, it was to do the actual trail down to the top tunnel, which is about 400 metres, so it will go across North Burnett and Gladstone Regional Council only by a very small margin. So, but it is
Would be the $80,000 that the Bradley Wolf Foundation is. If you're applying for an $80,000 grant, you've got 80,000. Wouldn't you be able to spend the 80,000 in the 400 metre? I just feel that there's a bit of a governance issue for us applying for a grant for an asset or something that's in another local government area. If the 80,000 that we might get through this grant process, if we agree to apply for it today, that could be spent in the Gladstone region, and the 80,000 you have in the bank, or that Bert have in the bank, could be spent in the North Burnett. Would that be not possible? Then that takes the governance issue away from me. And if it's tracks, not toilet blocks, it takes the asset issue away from me.
yes, because there is a car park that obviously needs designing and whatever else. So the sidings will be designed, with car parks and that sort of stuff. So
The guidelines, Mr Mayor, and this is where we're in that grey area as Councillor Churchill, the guidelines specifically say eligible project costs do not include costs associated with owning any completed facilities or ongoing maintenance costs of any completed facility. It's quite clear to me through the grants guidelines that TMR are unequivocal in their approach that they will not be owning or maintaining any assets with any rail trails that are funded under this arrangement. So, that's just where I think, from my perspective, I just want to make sure on behalf of ratepayers, before we jump into owning and assets and being responsible for ongoing maintenance costs, that we've got all the information at hand and we can categorically go out to our ratepayers right across the region and say, look, yes, we have undertaken this project and these are the reasons, because we think it's value for money and it's going to do all the great things that we know the project will do. What we just don't know is what it's going to cost. And I need that certainty and that comfortability around, so I can explain that to people when they come up to me and say, hey, why did you go out there and spend money on a rail trail, or why are we doing toilet blocks or bitumen seals or whatever it might be. I just need to have that information so that we can answer those questions.
Thanks, Councillor Goodluck. Councillor Cameron, do you have a question or comment you'd like to add? I know.
No, this is rather confusing. You've got someone that says, we've got some money we want to give to you for this project, and if you apply for it, you'll get it. We've got to find a way somehow where we can utilise this, whether we get the funding, quarantine it until such time we get all the ducks in line. Is that a way of going forward? I mean, we're putting the cart before the horse on this one. We're not quite ready to go, but we're prepared to go. That's the difficulty. I mean, this project's not going to go away. I don't believe it'll fail. And an opportunity is given to us. I think it's got to find a strategy in some way that we can put this together.
yeah,
I understand all the difficulties where there's conflicts here and there. But at the end of the day, what do we want to achieve? You take that as your guide and see if you can work some way toward that.
Yeah, so like Councillor Churchill said before, you are right. We're not guaranteed that we're going to get the funding, but when we get an email like that and said, here's the application form, sort of fill it out. So I believe the concept design will be finished around August, September. So, we could bank that money until the concept design's completed. So then, because the money doesn't have to be expended until June 2022.
Yep, Councillor Muscat.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Where we want to go with this project is to have a successful and great project for everybody. This isn't the end of the project if we don't respond to an email from a person that is not telling anywhere that they're going to give us any funding. And we're talking about $80,000, which, as we just discussed, it's not going to get much done really. And there's many other opportunities to get more money. There's a lot more opportunities to get not just 80, but maybe even millions of dollars, like when it comes to this project. Why do we want to risk the perfectly put process there, followed by informed details and papers, just because someone sent us an email with a possibility that they might give us some money because they just got some left over? I've been involved in lots of different situations with grants, and this is not, they do this all the time. It doesn't mean how many people send you things and encourage you to apply for money, and then they say, no, sorry, you've been unsuccessful, and they probably don't even reply to your question about feedback. I don't understand. I find this very uncomfortable when it comes to the fact that we have agreed on a process that it's like best practice, and we want to break it as soon as we can. I mean, why do we spend all this time spending money and talking about an investment decision framework when the first chance we get, we're just going to go against it? I don't understand. So, and I think it puts the project at risk, and I don't want to see that happening.
Thank you, Councillor Muscat. Is there further questions or comments? Would I ask Councillor Trevor or O'Grady to comment, please?
Thanks, Mayor. From my perspective, the longest walk begins with the first step, and let me say I've been on a lot of walks. For me, it's an opportunity. You miss it, or you seize it with both arms, both hands. It's really a matter for you, and that's why the notice of motion is before you. But there has to be a starting point. The end point will be many years from now, but the starting point is today. There's an opportunity that has been presented to Council that avails itself of some funding to start the journey. In partnership with the major proponents, which I believe will significantly advantage the project when it comes to future long-term funding by state and federal governments. I understand the argument in relation to the final investment decision framework, but I also understand that in life you also have to be nimble on your feet. Nimble on your feet when opportunity presents itself like it has on this occasion. And if you're not nimble on your feet, you'll get left behind in the mad rush. I think action speaks louder than words. I've always believed in that. I've always worked on the basis that action does in fact speak louder than words, and that's why the notice of motion is before you today. At the end of the day, having been involved in many announcements over the course of my public life, I've had to be nimble on my feet. On many occasions when the state and federal government has made announcements to this council, we have had to be nimble on our feet. We haven't completed our processes to their fullest extent when announcements have come to this council in the lead up to state and federal government elections, but we deal with it. And I can think of a great many of announcements made to this council, including announcements made by myself in a different universe, when council has had to be nimble on its feet. Some announcements were quite unexpected. Some announcements were expected. Those that were made unexpected, probably hardly any work was done on them. Those that were expected, some, and at times all of the work had been done. But the overriding principle, I believe, is that we have to learn, just as in private enterprise, that we have to be nimble on our feet. And when an opportunity comes knocking, we either slam the door in the face of that opportunity, or we open the door and welcome that opportunity in. Today is a decision for you to make on what will otherwise be a very long journey. That journey will take many, many years. It will not end until long after I've left this chamber. But today is the start of a new beginning, and we must be nimble on our feet.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor. Councillor Churchill previously suggested an amendment including the word current. I'm trying to find consensus in the room. Like I said before, I don't think there's anyone in the room that doesn't support the project, not necessarily supporting the process at the moment, but if we added the word that council apply for any current funding available, and perhaps put that as point A, and a point B could be and that the funds be quarantined until the concept designs are completed, which is, I'm being advised, is August, and then you have till next year to expend the funding. That gives you a good 6-8 months to be able to expend the funding based on a concept design that is complete. So you're not then putting a cart before a horse, and you're not missing an opportunity, and you're being nimble on your feet. Over to you, Councillor.
Yeah, Matt, I mean, the voices in my head might not be real, but I can tell you they're coming up with some good ideas here. Is that what it is that if we actually make the application, and I've seen this happen in the area of philanthropy, and it may very well have happened to, you know, individual decision makers around the table today, is that you can actually apply for the funding, you can secure the funding, it can be approved, and then at the end of the day, if it doesn't stack up, you hand it back, you don't have to take it. And that has happened often in the area of funding. My original request for you, Councillor Trevor, the mover of the motion, was that council apply for this funding, just available, and that, as Mayor Matt's indicated, and I wrote down the words, you know, in the absence of the information, that it be, if you want to use the word quarantine, or appropriately garnish it, call it what you like. We see this on many projects with our assets, that you can actually allocate it and it sits in there in abeyance until a time is made with the determination that it can be expended in the correct manner. But if you're not receptive to that minor amendment to your resolution, I can't support the open carte blanche of apply for any funding available whenever. I understand the principle of applying for it, but I don't believe we've dealt with the one sticking point here, is that the project be recognised as a project of regional significance by both local governments.
Councillor Trevor, if you'd like to respond, then Councillor Goodluck and Muscat.
Last evening I preempted the possibility of Councillor Churchill seeking amendment to my motion, and I'm happy to agree to his proposed amendment, and in fact, in consideration of the likelihood of that coming before the table today, I drafted the following alternate motion: that council apply for current funding that may be available now under the Rail Trail Local Government Grants Program. I repeat, that council apply for current funding that may be available now under the Rail Trail Local Government Grants Program, subject to 1, the BBIRT contributing equally by way of match funding, and 2, that such application by council be no greater than $80,000 for council's share. I can repeat it, Lisa. That council apply for current funding
Would I be able to just interrupt? Given that this program isn't actually current in that it has closed, I'm not sure whether current is advisable to use or whether the specific name of the program. I'll seek your advice on that, but yeah.
I'm happy to remove current, Lisa. That council apply for funding that may be available under the Rail Trail Local Government Grants Program, subject to 1, the BBIRT contributing equally by way of match funding, and 2, that such application by council be no greater than $80,000 for council share.
The thing that concerns me about that, Councillor Trevor, is your last point. So if Bert happened to get some other funding from elsewhere, just for instance, it was $100,000, you know, I would imagine they would be writing to council and ask whether they could do the match funding again for that, like, you know, if there was other money.
Yeah, I think the issue currently is that we know that there is $80,000 in the tin. We don't know whether any further funding may or may not come. I think my personal view is that we should apply based on the guarantees that are already there, as opposed to what may or may not happen in the future.
That correct on screen?
That's Trevor. Was it 50-50 or was it $80,000? Sorry, I didn't. For point 2, that council show the funding be no greater than 50-50, or was it no greater than 80,000? Sorry.
I said 80,000, Lisa, but I'm happy to go with 50-50, whatever your view is.
Got Councillor Goodluck and Moscato who'd like to still ask questions or comment. Just want to get that right, what you got on the screen first. Contribute equally by way of match funding. Okay. Do you need all those other points in there, Chris? What are you, council? I think if you put it at that, council apply for funding that may be available now under the Rail Trail Grants Project, and full stop, you might find that would be supported by Councillor Churchill, who is proposing the amendment. I'm not sure. Do you need the other? Point 1 and 2. It's a significant change to the original notice of motion.
A council apply for funding that may be available under Rail Trail Grants Program. Is that what you're suggesting, and leave it at that? Okay. I was just trying to restrict it to the $80,000 that's currently promised by BBIRT, so that we're not forced into making an application for match funding for more or less. That's what the evidence is before me, but I'm happy to go with the generalised view.
Let me just ask Carly, is the Rail Trail Grants Program, does it have to be matched?
Yes.
Right, well there you go.
This is for construction.
Yeah, but the design or paperwork, that it's up to 100%, they will fund. Yeah.
So
well, it's in the same form. It's in the same form.
Stream 1 is 100% funding, which we have received for the concept designs. The Stream 2 being construction is 50-50.
It also, like, setting that up, if tomorrow they change the funding, you know, I guess design or their details, then you set yourself up to not be able to apply for 80% or 100% of whatever they're offering, because you already have a resolution here that is 50-50. But I mean, it doesn't really matter because we already had a resolution and now we're going to just go against it anyway. So, well, not
necessarily.
So far yet, but.
Councillor Goodluck.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The Rail Trail Government Grants Program is specifically set up with 2 streams, from what I'm reading. it's got a planning stream and a delivery stream. To apply for the delivery stream, it actually has the stipulation that you need to submit the completed feasibility study and all the, relevant documentation and information. So to me, it appears that it was specifically set up to encourage people to get the planning done and then apply for the delivery of the project. We have applied for the planning. We have been successful with the grant for the planning. We haven't completed the planning yet, but we are, approaching that point in time where we will have the planning completed. I just get the feeling that we're jumping the gun here by applying prematurely for the delivery phase where we haven't completed the planning. We're on the journey. I take on board what Councillor Trevor said. But the day for the start of this, in my view, was at the last resolution when we're on the journey. We're in the planning phase. We're getting this body of work done, and I just think sometimes it's the old story of the tortoise and the hare. You just got to slow down to go faster. At the end of the day, I just want to make sure that we get that planning done so every single person can be well and truly up to date and informed about the decision that we've got to make. So I won't be able to support this motion today, but I absolutely, depending on what happens, look forward to once the planning's completed. And I've got no doubt that the state government has been very supportive of rail trails. There's been lots of funding. I've got no doubt that will continue in the next short to medium term. There'll be other opportunities that we can take advantage of here. We just need to make sure that we're doing things as per the process.
Yes, Councillor Goodluck. I think we've had I'm
very glad that I agree wholeheartedly with Councillor Goodluck in his statement, and we have to follow process here. There will be funding available other than this, I believe.
Councillor Churchill, originally wanted to add the word current in, and I thought that changed the motion more so that it didn't leave it open-ended. But then then the CEO advised that it's not currently current funding. But I just want to see clarification that if you include the word current in, apply for any.
I'm not going to force the issue in relation to current. What I was actually trying to emphasise is the funding that is available right now, today, yesterday, and nothing else. And what we do with it, garnish it, hold it in abeyance, I'm not exactly sure at this stage, because I think, in essence, the motion that should really come out of today should be our commitment or non-commitment to the project, but that's obviously going to come about with the great work that's being done right now behind the scenes by the General Manager.
I see the CEO has added the word now in. Can I just check with Councillor Trevor? Are you happy with that?
Happy with now.
I think we've had enough debate and a conversation on this. Councillor Grady, you're fine for me to. I'd like to. This is Councillor Trevor's motion. Are you happy to move that, Councillor Trevor? As it stands, just those words that council apply for funding that may be available now under the Rail Trail Grants Program.
My original amendment did include the word now, Mayor, so I must have thought about it last night.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder for that motion, and then I'm going to put the motion. Seconded by Councillor Branthwaite. Councillors, we've had plenty of debate, plenty of conversation. Everyone has, I'm sure, made their decision, so I'm going to put the motion. All in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors.
Mr Mayor, respectfully, I'd call a division on that one, please.
Thank you. A division's called. All in favour? Let the minutes show that Councillor Branthwaite, Councillor Trevor, Councillor O'Grady, Councillor Cameron, Councillor Hanson is in favour of the motion.
You call for it. You're not asking. You're not asking who's in favour. You didn't ask.
Yeah. Who's in favour of the motion? Sorry. I'll start again. Councillor Branthwaite, Councillor Trevor, Councillor O'Grady, Councillor Cameron, Councillor Churchill and myself as Mayor in favour of the motion. Those against? Those opposed is Councillor Goodluck, Councillor Muscat and Councillor Hanson. Thank you. The motion is carried. Councillors, we have one confidential item, and that is G8.1, which is the proposed transfer of land to Gladstone Ports Corporation Limited on Auckland Hill. and I have to read out this. In accordance with the Local Government Regulation 2012, Section 254JG, negotiations relating to a commercial matter involving the local government for which a public discussion would likely prejudice the interest of the local government, it is proposed to close the meeting to discuss the confidential item G8.1, proposed transfer of land, Gladstone Ports Corporation Limited, Auckland Hill. The item will be discussed and consider the request to dispose of the land at Auckland Hill to the Gladstone Ports Corporation, and will include presenting different options and opportunities, risks associated with different bargaining positions. Thank you. I have a councillor move into confidential, please. Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Seconded, Councillor O'Grady. All in favour? Motion's carried. We'll move into confidential and we'll be back out shortly.
Celebrate Easter in Gladstone, the gateway to the southern Great Barrier Reef. The marina comes alive with harbourside celebrations all Easter long weekend. Enjoy the Harbour Festival's carnival rides and family-friendly entertainment, and visit new attraction Sculptures by Gladstone Harbour. Over 18s can celebrate the end of the Brisbane to Gladstone yacht race at the village's line crossing party, or enjoy fresh produce at the Yachtsman's long lunch or the Seafood Festival. Accommodation packages available. Easter in Gladstone. Why would you be anywhere else?
Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Well, today we announced the beneficiaries for the 2021 Santos GLNG Mayor's Charity Ball, and I'm very pleased to announce that the charities this year are Nullandu Health Services, Rosebery Community Services, Mindcare Gladstone, and of course our good friends at Zonta are back on again as beneficiaries. We've raised almost $400,000 over the years for the local charities in the community, and we're going to do our absolute best to raise as much as we can again this year. And thanks to our sponsors and of course those who turn up and buy the tickets, the money will be distributed right across the Gladstone region. Well, the ball this year, the theme is Starry Night, and it's on the 29th of May, and tickets are on sale on the 1st of March, so we're encouraging everyone to jump on Council's website or contact the team at the GECC. It's 4972 822 and make sure you don't miss out. It's always a fantastic night. Obviously, 450 tickets on sale. They will sell out, and we've got the fantastic Hamilton Band coming back from Brisbane. They were here for our New Year's Eve event a couple of years ago, so people will remember them from that. It's going to be fantastic. Don't miss out on getting your tickets for this event.
Celebrate Easter in Gladstone, the gateway to the southern Great Barrier Reef. The marina comes alive with harbourside celebrations all Easter long weekend. Enjoy the Harbour Festival's carnival rides and family-friendly entertainment, and visit new attraction Sculptures by Gladstone Harbour. Over 18s can celebrate the end of the Brisbane to Gladstone yacht race at the village's line crossing party, or enjoy fresh produce at the Yachtsman's long lunch or the Seafood Festival. Accommodation packages available. Easter in Gladstone. Why would you be anywhere else?
Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Well, today we announced the beneficiaries for the 2021 Santos GLNG Mayor's Charity Ball, and I'm very pleased to announce that the charities this year are Nullandu Health Services, Rosebery Community Services, Mindcare Gladstone, and of course our good friends at Zonta are back on again as beneficiaries. We've raised almost $400,000 over the years for the local charities in the community, and we're going to do our absolute best to raise as much as we can again this year. And thanks to our sponsors and of course those who turn up and buy the tickets, the money will be distributed right across the Gladstone region. Well, the ball this year, the theme is Starry Night, and it's on the 29th of May, and tickets are on sale on the 1st of March, so we're encouraging everyone to jump on Council's website or contact the team at the GECC. It's 4972 822 and make sure you don't miss out. It's always a fantastic night, obviously. 450 tickets on sale, they will sell out, and we've got the fantastic Hamilton Band coming back from Brisbane. They were here for our New Year's Eve event a couple of years ago, so people will remember them from that. It's going to be fantastic. Don't miss out on getting your tickets for this event.
Celebrate Easter in Gladstone, the gateway to the southern Great Barrier Reef. The marina comes alive with harbourside celebrations all Easter long weekend. Enjoy the Harbour Festival's carnival rides and family-friendly entertainment, and visit new attraction Sculptures by Gladstone Harbour. Over 18s can celebrate the end of the Brisbane to Gladstone yacht race at the village's line crossing party, or enjoy fresh produce at the Yachtsman's Long Lunch or the Seafood Festival. Accommodation packages available. Easter in Gladstone. Why would you be anywhere else?
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, officers. We had one confidential item which we discussed, which was regarding the proposed transfer of land to the Gladstone Ports Corporation Limited on Auckland Hill, and the officer's recommendation is on the screen. I'll briefly read that out. That one, council surrender the trusteeship of Lot 42 on SP 260755, Lot 21 on SP 228422, and Lot 122 on CTN 282, subject to a number of conditions, but they are firstly, of course, being the Department of Natural Resources and Mines agreeing to appoint the Gladstone Ports Corporation as trustee, GPC providing lease in favour of council for a term of 30 years at a consideration of $1 for council's communications infrastructure, which is located up on the hill, GPC entering into a trusteeship lease on the same terms as existing registered lease dealing number 72049044, expiring on the 17th of September 2025. Council transfer the freehold title in land described on Lot 120 SP 257857 to GPC for the sum of $1, and that GPC grants council an easement over council's existing sewerage and stormwater infrastructure within Lot 120. Council resolves that the exception to the valuable non-current assets contract as prescribed in that point there applies to disposal of that lot number 120 for the sum of $1, and that council offers no objection to the closure of part of Flinders Parade identified in attachment 1 as an interim measure to negotiate an agreement with GPC wherein GPC assumes responsibility for the ongoing maintenance and management of those parts of Flinders Parade. Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation, please? Thank you. Move Councillor Trevor, seconded Councillor Branthwaite. No further discussion. I'll put the motion. All in favour. The motion is carried. And thank you, councillors. That's the last item on the agenda, and I'll declare the meeting closed at 12:40 p.m.